the other part.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regular September meeting of the Asheboro City Council. Welcome you all here, and let you know that this meeting is being streamed live on Facebook, and we'll start the meeting with invite you to all stand and join me in a moment of silent meditation, and we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, last month, we heard from our local delegation from the NAACP regarding a proposed resolution involving the removal or relocation of the Confederate statue at the courthouse. We gave that resolution to each of the council members, and you all had a month to study that, consider your position on that. We put it first because it's old business, and we'll go ahead and open a discussion involving that. We heard a presentation last month from the local delegation, the chairman, and his members and executive committee regarding the proposed resolution. And I'll open the council floor for discussion. Anyone at the council table that would like to start the discussion?
Mr. Mayor, having met with the delegation, as I think we all have, and much productive discussion was held, and I appreciated the things that I learned, and the things that I shared, and the things they shared with me. And then we subsequently we had a meeting, and they had presented a resolution, and I think that I'd spoken with Chip that I felt like the resolution drew conclusions that were beyond our purview in that, and asked that he revisit that and to get it more of a question or a simplex request as opposed to the language they had. And it appears to me they have accomplished that goal. I think they have, from my opinion, this is opinion, this is discussion. What they have requested here seems fair and reasonable and honorable.
That's the one page.
This that I have in front of me now, which I assume is item 3 that everyone knows.
It's just titled resolution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Item 3.
Yeah.
Well, I'll chime in. I'm sorry I missed last month's meeting, but I certainly have been clued in on the presentation, and I've been present at others where a lot of the material has been presented. I find the the supplemental resolution certainly be more palatable. I think there's some questions regarding the state statute as it relates to the initial resolution, which would have been problematic to support in a legal circumstance. And I concur in the support of the substitute resolution.
Mayor, you want to put the substitute resolution, just read it into the record so everybody gets a chance, because the folks on the TV and the audio won't
All right.
get to see it.
This is it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's it, right, Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem, that's the one you,
This is my, yes.
Whereas in the city of Asheboro, on public property owned by the county of Randolph in a prominent location on the grounds of the Randolph County Courthouse property, a statue of a Confederate soldier was erected in 1909, dedicated to our Confederate heroes in 1911, and remains to this day as a monument to Confederate soldiers. Whereas the Confederate statue is offensive to a significant number of Asheboro citizens because of its legacy of racial injustice during the period before and after the statue was erected. Whereas due to the passion of those both pro and con concerning the statue, said statue constitutes an ongoing public safety threat in the city of Asheboro. Whereas the city of Asheboro desires to continue economic development progress in the city for the benefit of all our citizens, the Confederate statue, because of past injustices it represents and its prominent governmental location, potentially damages the city of Asheboro's ability to recruit new business and industry. Whereas the city of Asheboro seeks to be an inclusive and just governmental entity for all our citizens. Now therefore, to accomplish the above mentioned goals, it is resolved as follows. The City Council of Asheboro, North Carolina desires a Confederate statue located on Randolph County Courthouse property in the city of Asheboro be relocated to some other respectable placement as soon as possible. The City Council of Asheboro hereby offers any necessary assistance to facilitate relocation of the statue. This resolution was duly adopted by the City Council, Asheboro City Council, in open session during a regular meeting held on the 8th day of September 2022.
and is, are you putting that in a form of a motion, or?
If someone at the table desires to make a motion, we'll hear the motion.
Mr. Mayor, based on discussion, is there any further discussion? I'm not to take, I would make the motion that we adopt this resolution as read.
I second.
We have a second, motion by Mr. Moffitt and a second by Mr. McCaskill. Discussion.
Let me ask a question. I'm just, to make sure I'm reading this, or I'm interpreting this, what I'm reading correctly. All right. We are asking the county to remove something off of their property.
That's not
That's, okay. I just want to make sure that's why I'm asking the question, to make sure I'm understanding correctly.
I think the next last paragraph, the last sentence, I think clearly singularly states what we are resolving to do or are resolved.
Read that.
The City Council of Asheboro hereby offers any necessary assistance to facilitate relocation of the statue. I think it's fair to say that the General Assembly is the only one that can grant any authority to actually move it, which that's gonna be another, mission, if you will, to-do list. I don't know that this resolution relates specifically, or concurrently in joining the county in any way. I read it to be just in general of what is under our purview, we're willing to do.
For the purposes of those of you in the room that were not here last week or have not seen the resolution proffered by the local delegation on behalf of the NAACP, it asked us to join with them in encouraging the county to appoint a study group of representative citizens to discuss the pros and cons and to actually make recommendations to the county commission regarding the removal or replacement, relocation of the statue. Is that a fair assessment, Mr. Faust?
It is, and after talking to some of the city council members, we are also determined that it be a group of individuals from all over the county with no expectation. Whatever, as long, we are going to create something where the facts walk in the room, and your beliefs or your actions need to be based on the facts, and the facts will lead us, hopefully, as a county, the facts will lead us where we go.
And to follow on Mr. Moffitt, Mr. McCaskill, we're getting ready to have a Representative Hurley and Representative McNeil are retiring off the council. If that includes facilitating a meeting with our newly elected House members and Senator Craven, I don't remember if he's running opposed or not. He or the whoever represents that would also be the time to, after they're sworn in, the mayor and I and Mr. Faust could meet with them and also work for changes to the state law. That's part of what you're saying, use. Is that correct? Just so we get that in the record.
At this
Mr. Moffitt.
point, the county's position is the state law does not allow them to remove this or relocate it. And not being a constitutional scholar, I can't address that. But that's their interpretation, and I think the law was written specifically for that. So what John's saying is that once our new state representatives are seated, we will facilitate a meeting with those representatives and try to encourage them to make it a little easier to have this moved and not in opposition to a standing state law. In the meantime, we have a substitute resolution here that offers our assistance. And do you have anything else you'd like to say about this resolution, Mr. Moffitt?
No.
All right. Anybody else at the table feel compelled to speak on this matter?
I commend the NCAA and Chip and your whole group and your willingness to be flexible in your request. You know, it makes, I think the council was being not backed into a corner. We were put in a difficult position. We can't do anything. Not our property, not our statute. The law won't allow it. But this is a resolution, I think, that's more palatable and more easily voted on by the council.
And I'd like to thank Mr. Faust, based on our first conversation that you and I had, and based on the words that you just spoke, those line up more so than what the resolution that was presented to us a month ago. And so thank you for hearing us on that as well. So.
Anybody else? We have a motion and a second to consider this substitute resolution in lieu of the one presented by the NAACP. I will call for a vote. All in favor of approving this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. It is unanimous. I understand that this is not what you asked for, And it is not, it is a very small step toward the end resolution that you desire. At this point, I think that's what our council is comfortable with. I have had many discussions with the county commission chairman and some of the commissioners themselves, and their position is they've considered it, they voted on it, and they consider it to be over and done with. So we will forward this resolution to them with our offer of help and assistance, and as soon as our new state representatives are seated, we will try to schedule a workshop with them to, including you and your representatives, and see if we can't figure a way around this impasse.
Mr. Mayor, let me just say too, that this resolution officially puts the city of Asheboro on the side of having the statue relocated. To me, that is a major step at this point in time.
I think it's noteworthy that it's, not only is it productive, but it is legally productive.
Yes.
To follow within the guidelines, and that's where our resolve will be.
Okay. That concludes item 3, and if any of you are inclined to leave at this point, I'll wait a minute or so and let you slip out before we continue the meeting. You're welcome to stay. I'm not asking you to leave.
Wondered about that.
Okay, on item 4, we have members of the Asheboro Kiwanis Club here to present a gift to the city of Asheboro. Lynn and Drew, we have the president of the club, Drew Weiner, and secretary, longtime secretary of the club, Lynn Jones.
In the window right there, hand that.
Y'all, come on up, I'm sorry.
Council, you can go right there.
All right, somebody needs to make a little,
We would like to present this check to the city of Asheboro, $50,000. What we'd like it to be used for, and I think what the city's gonna use it for, is the playground at McCrary Park. It is money that we have set aside in the past, to give for a different playground, but, now that, this opportunity is opened up, we're glad to give this money to the city for that purpose.
We plan on giving it for the Sioux City Sportsplex playground, but the YMCA has taken care of that, so we immediately said, okay, where else is gonna be another playground?
for the record, the YMCA applied for a playground grant, was awarded a $300,000 grant specifically for the playground at the Sioux City Sportsplex. And so that freed up the money that the Kiwanis Club had promised for that particular project. And since the focus of Kiwanis International is young children, has been for about as long as I can remember, this money will be put to good use with a children's play area at the new historic McCrary Park.
And it's handicap accessible.
Which should be completely handicap accessible with full access, including wheelchair access. So it will be a rather small park. It will not be on the scale of what we're planning to build down at, or a small playground, not on the scale of what is planned for Sioux City. But thank you very much, Kiwanis Club, and so everybody in the room will understand that money is money that Kiwanis Club has raised over the years doing their pancake supper, pancake day, and they are planning another one in March. I think COVID has kind of been difficult to deal with over the last few years, and they've had to cancel and they've had them off schedule, but
What's this day business?
the what?
Weed, David.
Oh, I've been in Kiwanis there about, what, almost 50 years?
Yeah.
So I'm proud of what the club has been able to do over the years in sponsoring American League in baseball and the sponsorship in our sports programs in the city. And just about any time something comes up, Kiwanis Club is there. They have a shoe program for kids in elementary school. The counselor can take a kid and buy a pair of shoes for a child that needs decent footwear and doesn't have to call the club and get permission. Thank you for the work, and we'll make sure that the playground we build at Prairie Park will be something you'll be proud of as well as the rest of the city and kids that get to play on it.
Mayor, and before you close that item, I would like to add that good things happen when good deeds. And this month, we belong to the Keystone Purchasing Network, the city. And further in your agenda tonight, there's a 50% off sale. So that $50,000 gift will allow us to purchase $100,000 worth of playground equipment. So that is a significant gift, and as a couple of old Kiwanis Blue Devils sitting up here.
Yeah.
From, I think we got off the Mayflower, but we think you made a difference in our lives too. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the appointed time for the public comment period. If there's anyone in the room that would like to address the council on any items of concern, city business, or concern, now is the time, and I will invite anybody to be first. Mr. Faust, come on up, sir. And let me make this announcement, as I always do, and Chip's been here enough, he knows what to do. There's a sheet up here with a pen, and if you do speak at any point tonight in the meeting, please print your name on this sheet so that when we transcribe the audio tape, we can get your name correct. Can't always get that off the audio tape.
Good evening. I'm at a loss for words, guys, but I guess what I want to stand up here and I want to say is, from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the Asheboro-Randolph County NAACP, we want to thank you. We want to thank you. And I want you to understand, I know you know what you've done, but I want to make public what you've done. For the last year, we feel like we've been screaming, the town is flooding, the town is flooding. And we feel like we went to the proper authorities to try to fix this problem or address this problem. And those authorities told us, no, there's no big deal. This isn't a problem. This isn't something that you need to worry about. And since they didn't want to act, we had a choice as a community, as a citizen. Our choice was either to accept that nothing was going to be done or try to find a way to convince those authorities that something needed to be done. And as a person, I'm telling you, something has to be done. And I understand that this board doesn't have the authority to do what we would like to see done. I understand that. But by saying that, by passing that resolution, you're agreeing that something has to be done, or at least that looking at the issue has merit. Now, I've talked to most of you. I know members of the NAACP have talked to all of you, but I give you my word as the president of the NAACP, we will look at this and we will not take your steps for granted. We will conduct ourselves honorably. We will walk into every negotiation with an open mind and with facts. We will leave opinions and assumptions at the door, and we will work with anybody who's willing to make Randolph County better. We have a much greater opportunity to make that happen because of your actions, and I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Faust.
Good evening. My name is Jane Gant. I am the Political Action Chair for the NAACP. First, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your effort. Am I totally pleased? No. And I realize each one of you are in a difficult position. You've got the county, you have to work with the city, and the council has to work together. First off, I'd like to ask, I want the council people to give us a copy of the resolution that you have revised so we can have a copy of that. But again, we are kicking the can down the highway. There's no guarantee that these new members will consider it. I look to you because when we researched that monument, it said it was given to the county, but it was also given to the mayor of Asheboro. So I would think you have a stake in that. I would think it would be a concern of you too. The county does not, from my eyesight, does not own that monument. It was a division. It was something that was given to both the city and the county. Again, I do thank you for your efforts, but I stand here now thinking, what are we talking about? 5 more months, 6 more months, 2 years? Will we ever get a bipartisan committee together? Will you support us on that too? I hope you will. Because at some point, when we say equal justice for all, at some point we have to ask ourselves, are we really getting equal justice in this city, in this county? I look to the county to the extent of taxation without representation. And I hope that is not. Because, I mean, basically, they've told us we are not going to consider anything to do with that monument. So coming to you, getting your support on this resolution, I do appreciate it. But I still question, how much longer will we be standing before you and the county commissioners begging for something that we all know is an injustice and that we're supporting? And I say to them, and I'll say to you, how do you explain that statue to your grandchildren? Because I know what I have to say to mine. When they ask me, Grandma, why is that statue still standing in front of the courthouse? I can say, I did my best. And they will know the reason that monument is there. No other reason than the enslavement of your people. And I want them to understand that. And that's my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Gant. Come on up, Reverend Pemberton.
Good evening. There's a couple of things that I wanted to speak about, and the main one, I guess, it is the monument, and we thank you for the way you voted and you took the time to help us find a good resolution for this. But as sitting back and listening and hearing, and this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning because it's going to be a long fight. It's going to be a long fight. I heard something when you was talking about the Kiwanis, they was talking about, you were saying they was talking about we. We're all in this together. Like I said at the council meeting We're supposed to be brothers and sisters in this together. We got together and made this an all-American city. An all-American city, that means equal justice for everybody. That means that there should not be anything that makes one person or one group of people stand out differently from another. I mean, and I also say, you know, like, I've been through the marches, I've been through the civil rights stuff, I've been through all this, and then I moved away from the city in High Point to come down to Asheboro because it was much quieter. But then I found the things that I found in Asheboro that I didn't like. It was worse than anything place I had been. I mean, there is the segregation and the things that are going on. I mean, there's a lot of underhanded stuff, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, because we're out there in the world and we see the stuff, we see the injustices, and we see the things that are going on. And, you know, and as I preach, I try not to preach about stuff like that, because I'm not supposed to be preaching about the conflict part, because it's separation of church and state. I mean, this is a problem that's, you know, it's going on all over the United States. But it's kind of prevalent here in Asheboro. One of the things when I came in, and as I came in, I learned God, and I learned to walk more in the Spirit. There is a spirit in Asheboro of enslavement. And that word, we got some that wants to be up here over everybody else, when we're all supposed to be walking equal. God said that he created all of us in his image. In his image. He didn't create anyone separate from the other. God does not look at color. God does not look at us as a black person or white or Indian or you know, Puerto Rican or whatever. God looks at us all as one of his. And you know, I really like living in Asheboro. I mean, Asheboro has afforded me a great living. I mean, and I just come from prayer, because we pray on Thursday night. We have intercessory prayer where we're interceding for the city, and we're interceding for the state and all of our local people in government. We're interceding for all of y'all, that y'all make the right decisions to govern us the way that needs to be governed, so that there be no ill speaking of anybody. I mean, I love walking down the streets of Asheboro. I love driving down the street. I just love being in Asheboro. I mean, I was born and raised in High Point. I've been a North Carolinian all my life, but Asheboro just seemed to be the place for me to come to live. I mean, we're right here in the center of the state. We're right here where all roads meet and they go out. I mean, we're at a meeting point here where people come through, and just everybody just come through this place because of the roads that we got. But see, but one of the things is that we wanted a peaceful resolution to this statute thing, to make sure that nothing gets out of hand, because we're being watched. Asheboro's being watched. I talk with people all up and down the East Coast about their statutes, how they got rid of their statutes, and how they this, that, and the other. And for the most part, a lot of them want to have somebody to come in and help them out. But that ain't what we want. We just want a peaceful solution for moving the statute out the way. And I'm through with that part. Another part that really kind of I like the council to look at is our roads. Fayetteville Street, from one end to another, our roads are terrible in the city. I mean, when you buy a brand new car and you bouncing and you hitting all over everywhere, I'm just hoping that there's something that, from an engineer's point of view, they could do something to fix our city roads. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I give you amen on that.
Come on up, Mr. Price.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, I'd too like to thank each and every one of you for what you've done tonight. But I'm not stupid. I know there's enough power right here on this board to move that thing. I know that. Whether y'all say so or not, too many other people have moved that statue and didn't go nowhere. They moved it. And you know the good part about it? I found out that when they moved it, people came together as one, and a whole lot of things have happened that had never happened before. Lexington, they'll tell you that people are shopping in places they've never been in before because of the statue. And I think we can do the same thing, and I think we can do it better because we have the power right here. Some of you all won't do it because of what you think people will say. But where you lose some people on this side, you might gain a whole lot more on this other side. And like I said before, when we look at justice, we look for justice for all. That's what, you know, when we do our Pledge of Allegiance, it says for liberty and justice for all. Now you know, and I know, we can say that all day long, but it's not no liberty and justice for all. You know it's not. I know it's not. We know it's not. But what are we going to do about it? Are we still going to sit back? For what y'all have done, I am truly grateful. Now, I've got to be like Pemberton, Reverend Pemberton in another way. Now, I got two things to deal with. That's the one. But again, I'm grateful to y'all. I need somebody to look at my driveway, and I'm looking right at you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll tell you why. Because you've been down through there. When they tore my driveway out, before they tore my driveway out, I could park a 45-foot bus in my driveway with no problem. Pull right up, back that bus in there with no problem whatsoever. They came in and tore mine out when y'all put down a sewer line that is going to do nobody in that area any good right through our driveways, and they put me a driveway in there that I couldn't hardly get my truck in. And one day when I called the mayor for a personal problem, I called the city, and man, it's like, no, well, he's not here, he's doing this, he's doing that. Next day, man, they was all out there working on my driveway. And I was like, that ain't even what I called them for, but I'm glad they came out here. But they still didn't fix it. Now my ditches is washing out. The driveway has cracked. And it's going to be a little while, and my truck's going to come right in there, and my back end will probably drop down in that thing. So I'm asking y'all, you know, and I know that I'm about to get somebody else.
I've been there.
But I'm just saying, it's
First house on the left.
It'll be third house on the left.
Third house on the left.
Third house on the left.
All right.
If y'all come out there and look at that, I appreciate it.
They might be
Again,
out there tomorrow.
hey, I wouldn't cry about it. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Next. Come on up, sir.
I didn't come prepared to speak. I wasn't planning to speak.
Give us your name, I'm sorry.
I'm Dean Brown. I don't live in the city. I live in the county, so I don't vote for any of you either way. Concerning the memorial, I may be standing by myself. That shows character. I didn't bring a whole delegation. I don't have a paid professional speechwriter. That memorial is put up for the men that went to this war from this county. A lot of them died on the field. They died in the hospitals. They had no memorial service. They had no grave. They just pretty well put them in a hole in the ground. The citizens put this up in their memory so they would never be forgotten. That's all this is. That's all we're asking. And I see you've made your vote. You've made your decision. But just honor the graves of these people. This is their grave. This is their grave. If we don't honor the graves of others, we have no reason to expect anybody to respect our grave when it's tore down because somebody don't agree with us. But it's been made something that it never was. And a half-truth is a whole lie. If it's not all truth, it's all lie. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Come on up, Mr. Edgerton.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for the vote. I think we realize it's a historic vote. A unanimous vote means so much. You know, we had a unanimous vote in the opposite direction with the county. So it means a lot to us. Regarding what was just said about the statue, there's a lot of mythology around what that statue stands for. You know, we know the United Daughters of the Confederacy were in a campaign throughout the South to really set up these statues for white supremacy. They were set up during the height of Jim Crow, during the time of lynching and segregation. So the idea that this was just simply a monument for the dead is a myth. If you look at what the statue says, and as you know, Chip and others have done about the history of what really this was all about, you can see there's a lot of mythology, and also the research we've done into the slave deeds here. And I know you know some of that. You've heard some of those stories. It's horrible to know what slavery did. And what our stance is that statue stands for the people that wanted to keep that going. They wanted slavery to continue. You know, and that's how, and they fought against America to do that. You know. But I thank you so much for your decision and your vote. I'm also in agreement that we do really need to move forward with this commission, if it's possible to do it. And I don't know what the next steps would be to start this commission, but I think we really do need to move forward and talk about how this is going to happen, how we can do it. And so I don't know. I'd just like to hear what the next steps are. You know, I know you're going to talk with some of the elected officials and things first. But the other piece of this, too, is you know, you folks are all white, you know, and so am I, right? Right? This is, I'd like to commend your courage as white people to stand up for this justice. It's about time for us to atone for the past. You know, and we aren't responsible for the crimes of the past, but we are responsible for denial of those crimes. And I think your vote is coming forward and saying, okay, we are not denying the crime that statue and the Civil War and white supremacy stands for. You're acknowledging it. That's what I'm hearing in your vote. You're acknowledging there's something wrong with that, and it's a moral decision that you all just made. So it's not that we're responsible for all the crimes. Those were done generations ago. But what we have to do at this moment is take account for not denying those things. You know, to own up to what actually happened, the real history. You know, there's such a movement in this country right now to bury history, to not talk about slavery and the Civil War in our schools. We've seen this happening. So I commend you greatly for this and for standing up as white people against this great injustice to people of color. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, in listening to these impassioned testimonies, if you will, I feel like it's important for us at this time to reread paragraph 3 of this resolution. Whereas due to the passion of those both pro and con concerning the statute, said statute constitution number 1 public safety threat to the city of Asheboro. Well, the second part of that sentence is a conclusion, but I think the first part is a drawn conclusion, but I think the first part, I think we have it right here in front of us. I mean, I don't know that that's resolvable in any number of generations. I mean, faith and beliefs are faith and beliefs, whether they're real or not, or whatever they're your beliefs. And I want to be respectful of Mr. Brown as well. That's what that statue represents to him. and I think that's encompassed in paragraph 3. And I want to assure Mr. Brown that I don't believe we made any resolution to destruction or dishonoring of what we would like for that statue to represent, or what we think it could mean. And I don't know what a proper relocation exactly is, and that's what we hope to determine. And until we get a General Assembly set, in terms of Mr. Edgerton's inquiry, with the nature of the beast being too retiring, I mean, and until December 1st, there really, sadly, in a lame duck session, there's just really nothing to do, which is unfortunate time. But as such time, we will begin that process.
If you're gonna speak again, come to the microphone.
I want to say first to this gentleman that I hear what he's saying, and that I agree that everyone has the right to be honored. Randolph County sent those gentlemen to fight that war, and that's us. That's the county we live in. We sent those Confederates to fight, and so we should never. I didn't plan on saying this, but there was never an idea of destroying the monument. The idea is to tell the rest of the story about Randolph County. Randolph County has a great and rich history, and that's why I'm glad I talked to some of the members, because we had walked into this looking at one thing, but there's so much more to tell, and part of that story has to be that Randolph County citizens did what their county and their state asked them to do and fought in the Confederacy. But you know what else? There are Randolph County citizens that are dead on battlefields who fought for the United States during the Civil War, and they're not mentioned in that monument. There are Randolph County citizens who lost farms and lives because they chose to do the right thing and not fight for the Confederacy, and they're not mentioned. We want to tell the whole story without dishonoring anyone. And I believe, my heart, I believe this is the one county in the state of North Carolina that can get it right if we just leave emotions outside the room and we bring what we know and we can back up as fact into the room and we talk to each other. I don't believe that young man and that young man are too far apart. I don't believe they are. But I believe if they sit down and we say, I believe this and I believe this, well, what do we know for a fact? And we go off what we know for a fact. I believe that in Randolph County, we can create the example that everyone else will look for or look to when they try to deal with this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Anyone else? Come on, Bishop.
I just want to ask a question. Does this have to be legible?
I hope not.
Does this have to be legible?
It should be printed.
I too want to thank you for your response, but with everything that's been said, I don't feel the need to address that anymore. But when I watched, Kiwanis Club, I thought that was just an incredible gesture. And but I serve the east side of Asheboro. And right now, there's not a single place on the east side for our young people to recreate. And so when you see reports in the news, it's almost like we talk about the blight of the east side. When we have young people who have no facility that's specific for them to have recreation. When I was growing up, the boys' club that I went to was equal to the YMCA that's here. The boys' clubs that our kids go to is in the basement of a church. I don't understand why there's so much money floating around, but none of that money seems to land on the east side of Asheboro. I'm asking because this is not an accusation, I don't get it. And I'm just hoping that at some point I can get it. There's a structure on the east side that we keep drawing reference to that's been sitting and sitting and sitting. East side is bigger than a structure. if we had the resources, I think that we could create something so that our kids have somewhere constructive to go instead of trying to find something to do that gets them into trouble. So when I see everything that's going on Zoo Parkway, I don't begrudge any of that. But I serve the east side. And when I drive through the east side and I see kids just hanging out on the streets because there's nowhere for them to go. For 10 years, I was director of our Daily Bread Kitchen. In the summertime, you have 50 to 60 kids coming to get a meal, leaving the soup kitchen with nowhere to go, just trying to figure out what to do while we're building parks everywhere else in Asheboro, but nothing is addressing the east side. The east side is a part of Asheboro. So my question is, why is not something being done to create recreational space for young people instead of in the basement of a church? I think we can do better. I think that there's monies that can help us to do better. I don't know. I'm asking a question. But it grieves me when I see 12-year-old kids being arrested and killed and then having fingers pointed because that's what's going on the east side. Well, let's do something to create room for them to deal with the energies that they have inside of them. All kids are not bad. They just need opportunity. They need space. They need something that's theirs. There is nothing on the entire east side of Asheboro that says to our children, you can come here and feel safe and recreate. And I don't understand. I just don't understand. I just don't understand. So I'm not, this is not a blame. It's a question. Why can we not create space for all of these children that have nowhere to go but to be bused to the basement of a church? I don't understand it. And I don't understand it. And I hug kids. I talk to kids. These kids have nowhere to go. They have nowhere. They can't go to the Y. We don't have public transportation. They can't get to some of these other places. So they have to create something. Some of these kids never step outside of the east side. But there's nothing on the east side that says to our children that we value you. Nothing. Nothing. And my question is, why? Why? We have a structure. I don't pretend to understand everything that's going on there, but that structure is not the only place on the east side where we can create something. So my question is why. Thank you for your time.
Bishop,
You want to talk about the after-school program?
you want to call me next week and we'll talk.
Absolutely. I certainly. Thank you.
Talk about the after-school program?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
next.
He knows.
Yeah, okay.
Anybody else? Go on up, Ms. Akers.
I don't have my glasses. What's next? What's the next play? Reason. City. Probably I'm the oldest one in here. I kind of gathered at 81. I'm probably about the oldest. I'm here. I don't know why I'm here. I love David. I love all of you. Pray for you. I was born in Asheboro, North Carolina. I grew up on Holly Street. I was away for 6 years, and I've been back ever since in the same neighborhood. I'm a city girl, and this is my city, and I like for people to get along. My daddy was a good and godly man. He worked in a hosiery mill. wasn't a fancy job. I grew up the same age as the owners of the hosiery mills around here and the businesses. We were all the same age, all the same schools, same people, Asheboroings. I guess we were mostly white, probably, because that was when I was a little girl. I can remember my daddy, who worked in the hosiery mill. He threw up his hand at everybody. He was friendly to black people, white people. I never saw color in my life. I know you all see yourselves as black in color, but we all have the same color blood, and we are one blood, and the blood of Jesus can make us one people and unity. I'm hearing a lot of, we want this, and we want this, and I, me, my, but we're not saying us. We are not looking at unity and not looking at the things that don't divide. And that's where we need to start. That's where we need to be, the things that don't divide instead of the things that divide. And when we major on the things that don't divide us, then we will come around to the things that make us one. And I just love this city, and I've seen the things that have deteriorated us, and the things that have divided us. And I've been around a long time, and but I know what unites the city. I know the Spirit of God that can bring us together and make us one. And we are not listening to the Spirit of God, even though we may think we represent God. We are not listening to the Spirit of God who makes men one, and instead of brings the division. We know what spirit brings division. Those of us that know the Spirit of God know the spirit that brings division. And maybe we need to look inside and see just who we're listening to, the dividers or the uniters. And concrete and all those steel and all those things they're gonna disappear one day. But the Spirit of God and who lives in us, if He lives in us, then we overlook the things that are trying to divide. We ask the author of wisdom, who is wisdom himself, for the wisdom we need. And this city was built by Asheboro, North Carolina, was chartered on Christmas Day. Our founders thought enough of Asheboro and what the future would mean for us, that we were born on Christmas Day. And that's always stood out to me, and I feel like that's made us special. And special in the eyes of God, to whom we all need to be looking. But things that divide have come amongst us. And we have it in all our lives. We all have one judge to whom we'll all stand one day, before whom. And He's at the door. He is at the door, and He sees what's going on. And only if we look to Him will we see what's going on. and find the truth, and Jesus is the truth. There's that name that divides everybody. Jesus is the divider, and we'll all have to come before him. He's the judge. And let's examine our hearts. And the Bible says, examine your heart to see whether you be in the faith. And that's all I've got to say.
Good job, Ms. Akers, and certainly an appropriate message tonight. Thank you for speaking, and I understand why you're here tonight. You're concerned about your neighborhood and your hometown.
Yes.
Thank you.
I can call him David because I've known him since he was a little boy. Mayor Smith.
Anybody else?
Yes. I guess if Joan's gonna do it, I have to.
Come on up, Ms. McGrath.
I'm sure some of you in here know my problems that I'm having on my street, Park Street and Fraser Park. I've lived there for 17 years, and before that I lived 8 years on Uwharrie Street. My ancestors were born and raised in this town. My dad's first cousin was mayor, Joe Trogdon. So I grew up using Fraser Park, brownie hut there, little swimming pool. We played with our friends there. But in 1913, Rufus Fraser of Troy, North Carolina, he donated the plot of land on Park Street, which developed into Fraser Park. The neighborhoods and churches surround this park, and over the last 17 years since I've lived on Park Street, Fraser Park has continually deteriorated to the point now we are inundated with drug gangs, and it doesn't matter what kind of curfew you got. It's 11 o'clock right now. Well, they spend the night there. They take baths in the restrooms, and it's come to the point now that the neighborhood people and the kids don't use the park. They don't. It's just totally dangerous for them, and we've been advised not even to go near it at night because it's too dangerous. They're roaming the streets, and in 1 week, 2 weeks ago, we had more 911 calls emanating from that park than the entire 17 years that I lived there. The secretary at St. Joseph's Catholic Church, she said she's too afraid to come out of her door and go to her car to drive home. She said she's fussed for years about the problems she's having from the people coming into the park and using and living there at the St. Joseph Catholic Church. They found somebody overdosed with drugs when they come in, had to call an ambulance for that, but she said they're cleaning up mess all the time. And I hate to go into the details, but it's come unbearable now. And I'm like Bishop Trogdon. I see money, they have other things for other parks, and I don't understand why it has to take time to bring what we need in the park to make people come back, where we can clean it up, keep it clean, and have people. The more people there, these homeless leave. Anytime there's any activity, they leave. As soon as it's over, they come back. And it's become unbearable. I do not think any of you would put up with the crowds that we have put up with at Fraser Park and on our streets if they were sitting up here on the steps of the City Hall or on the front steps of the courthouse or over here in the Senior Adult Center, or even in your neighborhoods, in your homes. If they come through my yard, I've got the only backyard that is open to the housing authority behind me. And they run right up through my yard and jump the fence. They leave their stolen property on my yard and then come back the next day to come get it. That 1 week, we thought our lives were in danger that night. We got absolutely no help at all. And it went on from in the morning until 10:30 at night. And then the next night, that drug dealer was right back there. And from 11 o'clock to 6 o'clock, the church had her removed from their property, said she's not going to stand here and distribute drugs on church property. So the police moved her over to the sidewalk, and she stood there on that sidewalk from 11 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and we called the police 4 different times. Somebody else, she finally sat down on the sidewalk, couldn't move, and they couldn't get her to leave, couldn't get her up, and they left her there until finally at 6 o'clock, somebody stopped on the street, saw her there, and called the police. One lady police officer came, and she finally called an ambulance, and they hauled her off. And they'll go, and they'll come back. When you were putting the roof on the shelter, it was all roped off. Well, they were gone then. We had some peace then, but they moved the drug dealing up to the street, one block, the first block of Park Street. They're distributing it there now. And, but I mean, I'm like Bishop Trogdon. I see all this money spent, but why don't you have any money for Frazier Park? That is the first park that Asheboro had. And it's a shame and a disgrace that it has gone into the deteriorated state that it is now. And I'm talking about a 4-block part of Park Street. I don't know what's going on outside of that, but I do know what's going on in that 4-block section. And I'm told, well, it's going to take time. I've been there 17 years. How much more time is it going to take to get it cleaned up? We've got seniors that like to walk. And everyone I've talked to said, I would love to have a walking path around here. If we get more people down there, these people leave. We can look after it. If we just get it done, then we will look after it. It would be nice to have a place where seniors can get out and walk. Sidewalks are in bad shape for seniors walking. It's not, and it's at night, it's dark, but then we got lights down at the park. But we did get a shelter roof. Got a new roof on the shelter. Well, now the homeless got a nice shelter to spend the night in. But it's time. It's past time.
It is.
I mean, don't build something new if you don't take care of what's old.
I agree.
That's my speech.
Thank you, Pat.
You can just let her know that you get a copy of that, and we turned it into the clerk, so it's on the record for her.
All right, Pat, you gave me a copy of that letter. When I came in, I passed it to the clerk, and it's in the record.
I'm sorry, what?
I just said that you gave me a copy of your comments. I passed it on to the clerk. It's in the record. And I agree with you. We lost control of our park, so we're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later on tonight. Okay, is there anyone else in the room that would like to address the council tonight? We've got some other business to get to. If there's not, we'll move on. Chip, there's a copy of that resolution for you. Okay, council, you have in front of you a consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that you would like to remove for individual discussion or deliberation?
Mayor, just one thing we want to mention. Several months ago, the council established the social district, and we talked about how the social district, the item E, approval of temporary street closure, the city attorneys duly drafted that, and that will close the social district during that event. So just want to make sure that was on the record.
Okay, social district will not be in effect during the fall festival
That's correct.
in any parts of downtown.
That's correct.
It is a family event. The social district footprint does not match up with the footprint of the fall festival, so we saw that as an enforcement difficulty, and so special events take precedent. There will be no social district during the fall festival.
And as always, Mayor, I did want to acknowledge the professionalism on Mr. Sub's behalf on laying all that out, getting it where it met.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Burks. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I will open a hearing and call on Mr. Nuttall for case number SUB 22-01. Going to give a staff analysis during the evidentiary hearing on the application for subdivision ordinance variance for Windcrest Acres, Section 4.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I begin, I did want to point out, and most of you probably noticed, we do have a little bit of a numbering discrepancy on our slideshow and the agenda. The numbering on the amended agenda, which went out, did not get picked up, so the slide items on the slideshow are an item behind. I'll just try to avoid any confusion in that regard. Mayor, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, which means anybody who speaks during this hearing needs to be placed under oath. And so that would be the appropriate time for anybody to, who believes that they are going to speak on this item to stand and face the city clerk so that you can be placed under oath. If you'll just stand and put your right hand up.
Do you affirm that the evidence you shall give this council shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. And Mayor, I'm going to distribute a plan that's associated with this, this variance request here. This is a request for a subdivision variance from the city's subdivision ordinance. It pertains specifically to a request to deviate from the city's required improvements and design standards for publicly maintained streets. That standard generally requires new public streets that are built as a part of a subdivision of land to be built with curb and gutter. The tract that we are looking at tonight is just under 20 acres in size. It's a portion of a single tax county pin. The total tract is about 70 acres, but we are only looking at a concept plan for about 20 acres. On the screen is the criteria that the city's ordinance identifies in order for a subdivision variance to be granted, or a deviation, if you will, from what the city's published requirements are for public street construction. The subdivision ordinance says where, because of severe topographical or other conditions peculiar to the site, strict adherence to the provisions of this ordinance would cause an unnecessary hardship, the city council, upon a recommendation of the planning board, may authorize a variance to the terms of this ordinance only to the extent that it is absolutely necessary and not to an extent which would violate the intent of the ordinance. All requests for variances shall be submitted in writing, which has occurred by the subdivider, and accompanying materials provided, which are in your packet. When we look at the specific characteristics of this property, the zoning on the parcel in question is R10 zoning. You'll see on the map in the packet there appears to be some RA6 zoning, which we believe to be an error. We view this property as most likely entirely zoned R10. That discrepancy does in no way affect the ordinance requirements. If you look at surrounding land uses, which I'll put up on the map, we do have, this is a continuation of the Windcrest Acre subdivision. So to the north of this tract, we have Section 3, which has been built and constructed. There is a manufactured home park to the south. There's some future development area to the east, and there's residential land uses to the west. This property is presently undeveloped. On the map outlined in red is that 20 acres that's subject to this variance request this evening. Tract A is the entirety of that county pin, where that 60 plus acres.
Any other letter denoted on this map is an adjoining property owner to this request who, under state law, received a notification from the city pertaining to this public hearing and this request. So those letters were mailed and the property posted in accordance with state law. This map shows the topographic characteristics of the property and the surrounding area. It also gives you an idea of the location of city utilities that are in the area. I think it's fair to say that this property is quite rugged in terms of its topography, but not all that unusual as compared to other property that's in the vicinity as well, especially as you look to east and south. This is an aerial map from a few years ago. You can see drawn in yellow parcel lines is what is known as Windcrest Acres Section 3, which the applicant just has constructed and recorded. This again would be an extension of that development, and you again are looking at the question and the matter pertaining to whether curb and gutter is required to be built with this proposal. Just for the folks in the audience, this is a snapshot of the plan that the council sees. It's difficult to see on this map on the screen, but I'll note that there is at least one connection to Bennett Street that's proposed. It could involve an extension of Turner Street into the property as well, if this subdivision ultimately is approved and constructed. This is a photo of the subject property. You can see the sign that the staff posted about this request. So the property is to the left. We're looking south along Bennett Street. This is looking also on Bennett Street, looking north towards the recently constructed Windcrest Acres Section 3. This is a property as seen from the southern portion near the intersection of Bennett and Turner Street. This is the view as you are leaving Section 3 and traveling south along Bennett Street. Section 3 completed the connection of Bennett Street with the new subdivision and the existing public street. And so we're seeing as you would leave the built section of Windcrest Acres. As we turn to the analysis on this request, again, the code says for new subdivisions proposed, curb and gutter shall be a part of the construction standards. This request is asking to vary that term. Depending on the outcome of this matter here this evening, the next step would be a submission of a subdivision proposal consistent with whatever the outcome of the council's decision is here this evening. I will note, and you saw from those pictures, that the previously built sections of Windcrest Acres do not possess curb and gutter. The reason for that is those sections were proposed as a part of an overall master plan probably more than 20 years ago that included those particular properties in that master proposal. This portion of the property that we're looking at today was not a part of that master sketch, so it's therefore doesn't possess any prior approvals or legal nonconforming status that would allow it to continue to build this phase without meeting the city's current rules for development. Up on the screen is, if you look at B, that outlines directly from the ordinance, what is stated with regards to public street construction standards. We generally have two standards. We have a standard curb and gutter section and a valley curb and gutter section. If you look in the ordinance, we do not have any other public street standard to follow. So the ordinance is very clear that in most instances, if you're doing a public street, curb and gutter is the city's expectation for construction. These are typical street sections as published in the city's subdivision ordinance. We have two pictures, just to give you an idea. This is not, this is a separate development, but this is just an example of what the city's standards typically lead to. This is a standard curb. This is a different project that has the rolled or the valley curb. So those are, again, the two examples of what we typically see. This is a view of the recently built Section 3 of Windcrest, which again was, in essence, grandfathered from the requirement to install a curb and gutter. So the request before you this evening would propose to continue this design into the new portion of the subdivision. As I stated earlier, this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. There are specific state statutes that govern this process. All evidence is supposed to be presented under oath. Yes, sir.
Go back to
Question?
pictures.
Yes, sir.
What are those boxes?
Porta potties.
Yeah.
Those porta johns? They look like they're for pygmies.
That's a
Must be
porta john?
perspective of the picture.
They're forward up.
I can see them from right here in my backyard, and I was joking with my wife one day about the old saying about, does a bear go in the woods? And I said, well, once you clear all the trees out, you can see exactly where they went. And plenty of facilities for them.
I'm glad to see, when they first come up with that ordinance, they had one for subdivisions.
They look like they're 5 feet tall.
Yeah,
Well, presumably they have chairs.
But again, this is quasi-judicial, so anybody wishing to speak needs to present actual testimony and evidence related to the request. I'm going the wrong way here. As required by the city's code, the planning board did review evidence presented at a separate public hearing about this request. Chairman Michael O'Kelly of the city's planning board is present this evening. I would ask him to hand up now to the city clerk the decision that was adopted by the planning board pertaining to this request. It was just adopted at the board's meeting on Monday night. Just to enter that decision into the record, the planning board, on a split vote, did not recommend that the variance be granted. So the recommendation from the planning board was a split vote to not grant the variance. This slide just outlines the materials that are in your packets and the exhibits. If there's any particular questions about some information that is presented, I'll be happy to answer those questions at this time. I will note that the staff does not make recommendations when it comes to variance requests, and that's because your decision is to be based on the evidence that's presented to you at this hearing. And so we neither have had the benefit of hearing what evidence may be presented to either support or refute the requested variance. So there is no staff recommendation for this particular item. I'll be happy to answer any questions. If there are none, the applicant does have a presentation that they would like to present at this time.
Questions?
Mayor, may I ask council a question?
Certainly may.
Jeff, it says Article 4 variances, and in the body of that says the city council, upon recommendation of the planning board, may authorize a variance. If they do not authorize it, may we still entertain the variance request?
The interpretation is that, yes, you may. It's a matter of, the state statute says anytime there's a hearing of it, there has to be a quasi-judicial hearing. That means you have to base, as you know, means you have to base the decision on the evidence presented at that hearing to reconcile the two. The city legal counsel takes the position that the planning board has to have its hearing. They have to give a recommendation, but it's given no more weight than any other evidence that is introduced during this hearing. So you take it into consideration and you weigh it with all the other evidence, and whichever way you, as the quasi-judicial body, come out to own, that's the holding at the end of the day.
I just want to make sure that our code did not prevent us from making this decision.
You raise a great point, and our code does require a little bit of reconciling with the other statutes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
In this particular case, just reading through, I mean, So was this the Board of Adjustments it went to, or the planning board?
It's actually the planning board that holds a quasi judicial hearing.
That's why it is
Yes.
here, and that's why we are quasi judicial now.
Yes, sir.
Be sure, 'cause,
Yes, sir.
about stuff. Okay. Fine.
So, yeah, this is.
When is a variance, a variance?
This is
Clearly, the
unusual.
county has no idea.
It's unusual. Most of the matters that come to you related to subdivision are administrative in nature, and you're looking for, have the technical requirements of the ordinance been satisfied? This is a different process, and you're sitting, reviewing evidence that's presented to you.
And paragraph 3 actually gives a broad leeway in a strict adherence.
Yes, sir, it does establish those conditions that you are to look for.
Says, or other conditions due to the site, which is
And if I,
subject to interpretation.
just as a follow-up to that question, and you asked a great question, how we came out on the point that it does fit most definitively within the statutory provisions on how variances have to be requested. It's not deemed to be a variance if there are objective standards applied, and it's either yes or no. Within the very text that you've pointed out, it talks about an unnecessary hardship. Well, that has to be defined on a case-by-case basis. I mean, there's hardship in all instances where there's a regulation. The question of whether it's unnecessary is going to have to be judged, and that's why you have a tough job, just like the planning board had a tough job of judging what is unnecessary. That's discretionary, that's a variance, and that requires an evidentiary hearing and puts us under those procedures.
Under those guidelines, I'll reserve questions and commentary with staff until testimony has been given.
Okay, sir, come right ahead.
My name is Christian Vestal. I'm here representing Davidson Land Development. I'm working with Summing Engineering on the development of these plans. Do I need to swear in again?
Nope.
Okay. I've put together just some point-by-point information to go through tonight. Staff has obviously covered everything that's required in the ordinance, so there's your outline. What's required for subdivisions, everything's listed there. We understand what's required. That's why we're asking for the variance. Over on the right-hand side, we see what the streets publicly maintained shall include, and Trevor went through that also. It's an NCDOT standard for curb and gutter. There's also a provision there for valley curb and gutter. The variance, as he's already put this exact text up there, and as the city attorney has reference to, the specific hardship that I want to explain with you tonight, it says where and because of severe topographical. I want to emphasize on that. We are up against some severe topo out there. I don't know if you've ever walked up 25% banks or tried to move equipment on it. It's difficult. Or other conditions peculiar to the site. I want to emphasize some of those also. Strict adherence to the provisions of this ordinance would cause an unnecessary hardship. It is our opinion, it is unnecessary. We will outline some of those tonight. The city council, upon recommendation of the planning board, may authorize a variance. So the city council may authorize a variance as anything that isn't destructive or contrary to the intent of the ordinance. Physical hardships associated with curb and gutter, physical hardships associated with any site would be the extreme topo that is on this site. Also, a storm system construction within a site that has a lot of terrain changes and steep hills. The velocity of the water accumulated in the curb exceeds that of flat roads, which you see downtown. And it has a disadvantage that there are a greater amount of catch basins, grates, boxes, and pipe required to the extent where it's almost double on a road that's twice as steep as something that's in town. So your collection system becomes more expensive. That's a hardship that we want to discuss tonight. Considering the extreme topo hardship, 20 to 30% slopes over the majority of the site. If you look right there where you see some of the parcel coming out in yellow lines and going where a lot of the pink and gray or purple and gray lines are very closely stacked together, some of those slopes exceeding 30%. And if you look further to the north on this site, it doesn't get much better. If you go farther south and right back to the connection on Turner, it doesn't get much better that way either. Per NCDOT guidelines, any slopes over 15% are considered mountainous and are classified as the most extreme conditions for design. Basically, that says there that anything from X% to 6% is is moderate, and then you have hilly, and then you have mountainous. And what they do is they give you different design criteria for all of those percents. They are the most lenient, or that is to say they allow less sight distances, they allow different things that you can get away with because of the extreme percent, and we are well over 15% in this area. The majority of the slopes within the previous phases, as Trevor showed the slide earlier, there's where we talked about the bears and where they would go to use the bathroom. That site has just been constructed. They're currently building houses out there now. But that's 7 to 15%. So nothing quite as bad as this and not as extreme. So there's what we're up against. And the hardship specific to this site, directly mentioned in the ordinance, is the extreme topographical hardship. As far as storm system construction, I talked about it briefly earlier, but if you look to the picture on the bottom left, you see sanitary sewer being installed underneath an existing storm pipe. So that's what happens when you have storm put in the road as well as water and sewer. And, it has to go somewhere. It goes in the public right of way. The more crossings you have because of the steeper slopes, the more storm system, the more construction you have of that, the more expensive the site becomes, the more difficult it is to build, the more of a hardship it is on the client. The one picture to the upper side of that page is just showing there a typical crossing where there'd be a catch basin on one side of the road, another one on the other. Those are typically placed in the curbs. As the pipe crosses the road, you've got clearances, as you see on the left, and you got the addition of those on almost a rate that is double compared to a flat street because of the velocity that the water is running through the curb line. Another hardship would be the financial hardship. I've gathered this information from the developer based on previous conversations and running the numbers on past construction costs within the last 12 months. Additional storm system construction associated with the velocity due to slope extremes and the curb and gutter associated costs. Those alone in recent projects have accumulated to $5,000 and over $5,500 per lot. Do the math on 20-some, 30-some lots, and it shuts the project down on this particular site. It doesn't happen. The Lexington project mentioned above had optimal site conditions with gradual slopes and clean soil. So I'm saying it's a $5,000 increase per lot on a good site. On a site that's not good, the one we're looking at here at Windcrest, those numbers could be more. They will be more just based on the addition of extra inlets based on the slopes alone. With recent requirements for City of Asheboro sanitary sewer to all be ductile, that additional cost there, the rising cost of fuel, we know everybody's feeling that every day, and specifically the hardships mentioned previously. You've got the storm, the crossings, and the extreme topo. This project would be unfeasible for the developer. Another point we wanted to draw out, and Trevor even had pictures showing where the existing roads in the neighborhood are all just ribbon pavement. We're ribbon pavement coming in phase 2, phase 3, looking to continue that. It connects to Bennett Street and possibly to Turner, and those neither have curb and gutter. So there would be consistency within the existing neighborhood to present the same thing that's already there. And that's something we would like for you to consider when evaluating the decision to grant us a variance. In conclusion, a strict adherence to the subdivision ordinance of the City of Asheboro would cause an unnecessary hardship. That is our opinion. Obviously, you have to make that determination. We've presented, I think, facts, I think evidence that would support our case tonight. Council may authorize a variance which does not violate the intent of the ordinance. The ordinance clearly outlines what it's there for. It is to create subdivisions. We cannot build the site because of the hardships associated with this particular site. We cannot fulfill the intent of the ordinance, and that is to allow subdivisions within the City of Asheboro. I understand there are certain regulations, just as there are, but there are also conditions to allow for variances. This variance is requested with considerations of site-specific hardships, financial hardships, and the overall development consistency. In conclusion, we believe the request does not violate the intent of the ordinance and provides adequate evidence to support the claim of hardship. At this time, I'd like the developer to come and just give a brief word regarding his relationship with you guys, the ones he's worked with in the City of Asheboro through the planning department, coming to council, and his experience regarding the whole matter, and maybe add a little bit to the financial hardship.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Reed. My partner, Lanny Hedrick, on Davidson Land Development. Real quick, I want to say we've been developing in Asheboro for 2 years, and it's our favorite place. We're from Lexington. We're developing all over the place, but working with you guys, working with Trevor and John, even down to the inspectors, Pearson and Travis, that we deal with on a daily basis, this is by far the best place to work. But what we're asking for here is a little help on this site. We own quite a bit of property in Asheboro and want to continue our relationship here. But if we cannot get a little help, it's going to kill this project. At Windcrest 3, if there would have been curb and gutter on that project, we would have folded up and lost money because it was so bad. I mean, it's blasting, hammering, everything is bad. So the thing about the curb and gutter is, as Christian noted, it adds so much per lot. You know, it's going to add 15% cost to that lot. And these are $40,000 lots when it's over. You know, sewer, water, paving, padded, it's a $40,000 lot. So you're talking about 20% of that is just for the curb. And the material costs has went wacko over the last few months. And like RCP, the pipe for storm is an 8-month lead time. It's not coming down. It's just going to keep getting more and more. And another point I'd like to just mention is this year, the city of Asheboro went from SDR plastic sewer pipe to ductile. That is a major, major cost to the developer. And you couple the storm and the ductile together, it's almost not developable in Asheboro. And a few months ago, we sat in here and the gentleman did a presentation on what the impact BMW had on South Carolina and sort of related it to Asheboro with the mega site and so forth and so on. From our standpoint, and we're as efficient as any developer because we do it all except for paving. And if you add the $3,000 or $4,000 per lot for ductile, and you add $6,000 or $8,000 for curb and gutter, I don't know any developer that's going to work. And my concern is, and like I said, we've got quite a few developments in motion in Asheboro, is that I don't know that that's sustainable for future growth in Asheboro, which is not good for the city, because if we can't make the math work, I'm not sure anybody can. So I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody has.
I have questions, but not for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Any questions of the developer?
How many houses are you planning on putting on this site, the new
I
site?
think this was 30 or 31. Yeah, 30 or 31.
What, you mentioned the $40,000, I do have a question for you. When you threw out the $40,000 price, was that with ductile and with curb and gutter or without?
That's like Windcrest 3, padded, curb, padded, sewer, water, everything. That is what we sell it for.
But that did not, but that section had ditches.
Right.
And plastic pipe.
But
in the sewer.
as far as the home builders, and Century Complete is mainly who we develop for, they don't care if it's got curb or not. You know, they're just gonna pay the same. They're not gonna pay a premium because it's got curb and gutter. We did Robin's Nest a couple years ago, and it had curb and gutter because there was curb and gutter already in there. And at that time, still the same lot price, but material hadn't went as bad. And the topography over there was a lot better than it is here.
That's true. Of course, and I've got some questions for the engineer.
Okay, I'll hop back up if you do.
SDR 35 and ductile iron, but the, one of the things that's consideration to the city, you mentioned the builder, home builder, what doesn't care, but the city has to maintain those 30% grade ditches for the rest of our lives. And getting those stabilized is a hat trick also. And that's part of the consideration for desiring storm drain. But, Michael, can you elaborate just a little bit? I'm familiar with the city requiring ductile and water. I'm familiar at certain depths, rocky terrain, having ductile and sewer. Have we gone to ductile for every depth category?
I'm not aware of that, no, sir.
So how?
Yes,
Well, he's a city engineer. I'm not doubting your word. Ain't two in this conversation.
Our specs still call for, allow either.
Oops.
Is it something that was written in on a plan?
What's your depth classifications up there? I mean, you're going up the hill, it can't all be deep.
And our inspectors are Pearson and Travis that are out there daily, and they said starting January 1st, it's straight ductile in the whole city, which is a major expense.
We we've been all ductile on water for decades.
That's right.
And we have classifications that I'm familiar with. I'm a retired water sewer contractor. That helps any and all of this, but, when we went up by
Let's get the answer, because we're all confused.
Richard Pugh's house and all up there, they're going upside the mountain, it wasn't that deep, but it was solid rock, and it was just cheaper to run it to ductile than it was to try to figure out how to bed it, and you're right, those service connections are unbelievably expensive to get those 8 and 4/5. And then you gotta come out of that with something, whether you switch over to cast or not. But I don't, that sounds like a piece of bad information.
Let's, let me throw something on
But
the
that
table
wasn't your
here.
request tonight.
Is this gonna,
I was just bringing that up as, so y'all are aware that.
Well, what I'm trying to fix tell you is you can buy a lot of curb and gutter, that ductile money you thought you could spend.
will this cause you an extreme hardship if we defer or continue this to the next meeting and answer that question? Because none of us are aware of that. And city engineer's not aware of that. Now, that doesn't mean that we're all not, that we're not misinformed.
And I've played pipe here 40 years, and I ain't never heard tell of what you said.
Windcrest is 100% ductile. Timber Ridge, that we just got approved.
Yeah, we looked at,
We would have been told us about it, yeah. I mean, it was, man,
I think we
Why?
need to check that.
No, well, let me put it, who's your design engineer?
I mean,
Well,
no, with SDR 26 all the way. And we do that on every other project with them, but
I think
somewhere along the way, we've got a comment, and that was the interpretation back to us.
we need to,
we need to just stop this right now, 'cause there's other things that we could go forward with, but
let us
we
figure
need to
it
know the
All right.
impact of that before we address anything else, I think.
You're saying the ductile part doesn't affect your request for a variance on the curb and gutter?
right, the variance doesn't affect that. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that that's an additional.
Well, we need to find out about ductile, but if,
Irregardless of what he just said, I want to make a motion to continue until I get that answer before I can properly evaluate his request in its original form.
Can we continue it, Mayor, and we want to get the city attorneys to continue it and make that first at October 6th, I think.
yeah, I think,
We want to help you, but something's out of kilter.
make a motion.
Mayor,
Make a motion that we continue this matter till the October 6th meeting.
I'll second.
real quick, I neglected to tell the board, and this does not affect the motion in any way, but in the case of a variance, it is a requirement to have a 4/5 supermajority in order for the variance to be granted. So I wanted to get that in the record. We will remind the board of that next month if this matter is continued, but that would require 6 of 7 council votes in order for the variance to be requested.
I'm gonna be,
Last month you said you weren't gonna be here for something.
I'm not leaving until the 8th.
Okay, well,
Is it, would the,
I don't have a calendar
can,
in front of me.
you
said
have a,
you weren't gonna be
Madam
here.
Clerk, you have a calendar.
It's October 6th.
It's October 6th, that's what I remember too. That's correct. It's October the 6th.
Yes, I know what the mayor's talking about. That was a different matter and different conversation. But
Somebody said I'm not gonna be here, that's all I hear.
Okay.
I'm here for you.
All right, have a motion and a second to, Mr. Bell, were you the second?
I was the
Okay,
second.
to continue this to the next meeting, which would be October 6th,
Yes, sir.
And
Okay.
it'll be the first.
first. And I'm sorry, guys, but that's a question we need to answer.
Well, and I think this 4/5 threshold makes this continue to more. And in the meantime, there may be a need to have a sit-down meeting
With the staff.
with staff, and I'd be available too if need be.
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor,
Hedrick, you have something you'd like to
I
say?
was just gonna say, could we request a refund on that, not that we put on that? You know,
figure it out.
it's pretty expensive to do, it's in the ground, and that's gonna give you no trouble in the future.
I didn't stamp your drawings.
That was a tough one.
Mr.
I didn't stamp your drawings.
Like Mr. Reed said, that switch in the ductile,
I know exactly how bad that
we
is.
were like, didn't know if we were gonna get out of there or not, and now to face the curve on this next one's pretty tough.
You know, of course, you can't get PVC pipe no quicker than you can get RCPs, but anyway, that's.
All right,
Mayor, I think before the council takes a vote, we need to make sure with Mr. Sugg that the sworn testimony is still a quasi judicial.
It will be continued.
And it'll be continued, and they'll have to be, do we have to, if they've not been sworn, they have to be sworn if they want to speak next time, right?
Right, any new evidence, it's sort of like we was on the verge of swearing in, saying that we had to swear in the city engineer, because
Right.
any evidence that you rely upon base your decision on has to be evidence that was received under oath. Everybody who's been placed under oath since this case is open and is being continued in open session will remain under oath. Whoever is going to introduce new information, such as clarifying this issue, will need to be placed under oath at that time and entered into the record.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
The city does appreciate your durable installation.
We gotta find out about that.
This summer, we were fortunate enough to have an intern, community development intern.
David, we need to vote.
Oh,
We need to
I'm
vote.
sorry. We need a vote.
Doesn't require supermajority too.
All in favor, say aye.
Simple majority vote.
Aye.
All opposed?
Some sort of vote.
Motion carries. All right. We had a community development division intern this year, Tyler Brown, this summer. Tyler's a student at Virginia Tech. Is that right? Okay, Tyler's gonna give us a wrap-up, give us and he's got his mom with him today. And he's gonna tell us what great things he's accomplished for us this summer.
There you go. All right. Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Tyler Brown, and I'm a second-year Master's of Urban and Regional Planning student at Virginia Tech. This summer, I got to intern with the planning department and got to work on several cool projects, sit in on a bunch of interesting meetings, and just overall learn about how local government works in my hometown. So tonight, I'll be talking to you about two specific projects I worked on as an intern, developing a redesign concept for the city's wayfinding signage, and creating signs for the animal track crosswalks downtown. So I'll start with talking about wayfinding. So before any designs could be developed, it was important to look at the current conditions of wayfinding signs in the city. So the current signs were installed about 10 years ago across the downtown area, as you can see on that map. There were about 36 signs installed in total, and that includes both the large wayfinding signs pictured there, but also smaller welcome, direction, and parking signs. So since being installed, 12 of these signs have been removed or knocked down over the years, and the red symbols on your map indicates that sign is missing. So as you can see, certain areas of downtown, such as West Academy Street and South Fayetteville Streets, they've been pretty affected by these removals, and these streets don't have really any wayfinding signs at the moment. So since these signs are also a decade old, the remaining signs are becoming outdated. So signs like this one here point to places that have changed locations in downtown, like the Economic Development Corporation. Also, they point to places that no longer exist in downtown, such as the Visitor Info Center. The current signs also do not point to new places downtown, like the Rec Center and the Chamber of Commerce, that may be bringing new people into downtown Asheboro. So with this in mind, I worked to create a redesigned concept for the city's wayfinding signage. These signs could complement ongoing revitalization efforts downtown, and my goal was to keep the layout and size similar to the current signs so that existing poles and mounts could be reused if this concept was ever adopted. So I created two color options for these concepts. Option 1 uses the same blue color scheme as the current signs, but option 2 uses a new green color scheme that was inspired by the city's logo. So the dimensions for these signs would be 53 inches by 30 inches, making the signs the same width as the current signs and about 5 inches taller. As part of this redesign concept, I also went ahead and redesigned the smaller welcome, parking, and directional signs. And you can see them here in both color options as well. So overall, this was a pretty cool project to work on. I got to see how much effort goes into not only designing these individual signs, but what it takes to build a wayfinding system. Also got to learn about some of the best practices from other cities across the state who have underwent similar redesign processes over the years. So now I'll talk to you about the main project I worked on over the summer, which was creating signs for the animal track crosswalks downtown. So there are 9 animal crosswalks across Asheboro, and they do a great job of connecting the city and the zoo. Some of the animal tracks are pretty easy to identify, but others are not. So to solve that problem, I designed these signs that tell you about the animals whose tracks are on these crosswalks. So I have 2 mock-ups, and I'll let the council see them. So on the screen, this is an example of the sign for the polar bear crosswalk next to the flying pig and the polar bear mural. So each sign will have the animal's name, the outline of the animal tracks, and a fun fact about the animal. The signs are also going to have a QR code that will take you to the zoo's website. Yep. So you can learn more about that animal.
I'm easily distracted.
Hey, I'm glad you're using it.
Simple minds are easily used.
But yeah, they'll take you to the zoo's website, so you can learn more about the animal, see where its exhibit is located at the zoo, and also just learn information about visiting the zoo. And since the signs are intended to further connect downtown Asheboro and the zoo, we're going to include the city and the zoo's logo on them, as you can see there on either side of the polar bear. So the signs will be 12 by 12 inches, and they will be placed on the sidewalk adjacent to the crosswalks. And the point of this is to reduce street sign clutter and also prevent them from being knocked down in the future. The signs shouldn't be more than 1/8 of an inch thick, so they won't limit the use of sidewalks or crosswalks. And they will be made of aluminum, so they should be pretty durable and hold up to normal wear and tear, even if people are stepping on them. Obviously, hope they don't, but they should last. So there will be 1 sign for each of the 9 crosswalks across downtown, and you can see the locations of the signs and crosswalks here. My hope is that these signs will give both tourists and locals, adults and children, a fun new way to explore downtown Asheboro and maybe learn something about their favorite zoo animals. Overall, this was a really neat project to work on. I got to be a part of the entire process, from idea to helping make the mock-ups and presenting tonight, so this has been a very rewarding experience. Also got to work with the city sign shop and zoo staff to help produce these, so great experience. And before I'd finish, I'd just like to thank Trevor and the rest of the planning department for all their help and advice this summer, and also everyone else in City Hall that I had the chance to work with. I know that the experience and knowledge I gained over the summer will help me be a better planner in the future, so thank you. Thanks.
It was our pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
That was great.
That's impressive. Now, when you finish your master's?
I'll graduate in May.
Congratulations. Good luck. You've done a great job for us, and we appreciate it. This is really cool, because I've had so many people say, what are these tracks here? There's a couple I can pick out, but most of them I cannot.
Yeah, some of them are pretty confusing.
Elephant's pretty easy. And while we're talking about the crosswalks, let me just add that as many of you know, we did half of them one budget year with the imprint, the red brick imprint, and half the next budget year. The guy doing this comes out of Florida, and we had a lot of trouble getting him here to do the 9 that he did. He's got 8 or 9 more to do, and we're not exactly sure when he's coming back.
Tracking him down.
And there were a couple on Sunset Avenue that were missed. So John has made arrangements to have our sign people do the white borders on both sides after the imprint is put down. So our sign people are gonna go ahead and delineate the the crosswalk with the white borders, in expectation that sooner or later the guy will get here and finish the project. But we had questions about, especially the ones on Sunset, right there in front of Pat's Hairstyle and crossing Bicentennial Park driveway, and right around in there, that they're missing, and it's hard to know exactly where to cross the street, Sunset Avenue. So we're gonna go ahead and delineate those with the white stripes if anybody asks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck
Thank
to you.
you.
Thank you, Tyler.
Good job.
Been an honor to serve with you, man.
Okay, Mr. Nolan, you're back up. Item 9A, you got a update on the Acme environmental assessment?
Very quickly, Mayor, we want to report that the city did select and is under contract with Centerra Corporation to conduct the Phase 1 environmental, and if necessary, the Phase 2 environmental site assessments on the adjacent Acme McCrary property as a part of our review into acquiring that site. Centerra was on site earlier this week. They're preparing their review of records. We expect an environmental report and any recommendation pertaining to additional reviews that may be warranted to be in our hands by September 23rd. That will keep us on track to complete any necessary environmental study by the end of October. Our goal still is to close on this property this calendar year, barring any unforeseen circumstances coming up. So we just wanted to update you on where we're at. That is underway and moving forward as we expected, and we will keep you apprised. Thank you, Mayor.
Item 9B, qualification-based selection process for the trade street.
Yes, Mayor. The city has advertised and did receive responses for professional services related to the proposed Trade Street Improvement Project. This project is intended to improve the function and look of Trade Street to further support redevelopment efforts. We are going through negotiations now with the apparent preferred firm. We expect to have a proposal for those services to present to the City Council at your October meeting. I'm happy to report that this project largely is anticipated to be funded by a state-directed grant to the city. So I do want to be sure that we recognize and thank the Randolph County delegation for its support of the city in moving that project forward. Thank
Questions?
you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Leonard, you got 10A is McCrary Ballpark Improvement Project.
Yes, sir.
Michael, thank you for your service on the planning board.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packets should be a contract between the City of Asheboro and Rogers Builders, Inc. for the purchase and construction of the grandstand and all the pertinent infrastructure at McCrary Ballpark. During communication with multiple grandstand suppliers and or installers, it was discovered that only one was willing to paint the structure with the green Tanemic paint as requested by the city. All other suppliers would only install it with a galvanized finished, or with galvanized finish only. The total contract amount for this portion of the project, which includes the grandstand, the concrete ramp, it's actually, I believe, concession stands underneath. Did you put that picture in there for the McCrary Ballpark, red?
I don't think it's in there.
Okay. Total contract amount for this portion of the project was $3,597,305, and includes the area that I was going to say was marked in red, but we can get a map for you guys.
Next time you see it, it's marked in red.
Yeah, it's marked in red. Staff recommends approval of the contract. That's it, right there. Yes, sir.
It's in your packet.
I thought we had a slide with it as well, so.
Questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just for procedural clarification, in addition to the contract that's in your packet, there's also a resolution that's in there authorizing the sole source exception to competitive bidding. Under the state statute, you have to act first. The governing board has to grant this permission to use the sole source exemption before you award the contract. So if you would do that resolution first, then award the contract, if that's your pleasure.
All right. Any questions of Michael? All right. Entertain a motion to approve the sole source contract
Exemption.
resolution.
Mayor, I move we approve the sole source exception resolution by reference.
Have a motion by Mr. Bell. May I have a second?
Second.
Second. Ms. Heath, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Now, a motion to award the contract. Anybody?
Oh, I didn't know if we had to hear anything else. I move we approve the contract for 3.597305.
Have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks.
What is the time frame on this? Are we gonna be able to get it going?
We will, based on the council's action tonight, the council approves this contract, we will, the city clerk and I will endorse the contract, we'll do our thing, and keeping our fingers crossed, July 4th, we'll cut the ribbon on it, have fireworks, and have a zookeeper or American Legion game.
July 4th, okay.
Okay,
There's a lot of moving parts between now and then.
Hey, it's a lot of moving
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
While we're here, Mayor, you may want to ask Mr. Pugh just to mention a few words about what's going on with the zookeepers and American Legion and the future of
sure.
Asheboro baseball.
Ronnie, would you want to come up? Congratulations on being nominated for the Organization of the Year.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of that had to do with name change and facility upgrades, so played a big part in it. Just first of all, want to thank all of you for what you've done so far and what you're planning and proposing for the future. I don't know of a community our size, and John and I have talked about this several times, anywhere in the state, maybe it's the southeast, that's going to have a facility similar to this, outside of the Division I college programs and the professional programs. So I think you have a lot to be proud of, and we all do when we get this thing finished. The zookeeper name change, we're still getting asked about that. That's been just a tremendous success. We couldn't be any more pleased. We've had comments and responses from all over the country. We've sold merchandise in multiple states. Probably next to the Savannah Bananas, we were the most talked about team in the CPL this year. When this thing's finished, without a doubt, until somebody else steps up to the plate, we'll have the nicest facility in the CPL. There's no question about that. We've also been involved on some podcasts that go on around the country. We've got guys that travel around and visit ballparks. We've got some that just look at strictly at new names, new logos, what minor leagues are doing. They're the ones that got all this stuff started. But we listened to about a 2 or 3 hour podcast one day, two guys that don't do anything but talk about new logos and things. And the zookeepers probably took up an hour and 45 minutes of the 2+ hours. So it was some real good recognition for us, and we got a lot of comments from that and across the country, like I said, on social media and all. Just updating you on our situation, we just hired a new GM and director of baseball operations. She'll start Monday. Well, she's actually started, but she's been finishing a teaching job. But Melissa Godwin is going to fill that position. Melissa's been someone we've known for several years, but she was an athlete, college athlete growing up. She was a teacher, and she's also coached in the college level. She just happens to be the wife of UNCG baseball coach Billy Godwin, who's been a good friend of ours, and we give him credit for the double wall in left field. He was actually coaching Lewisburg when we hosted the Region 10, I guess it was their regional tournament, back probably 10, 12, 15 years ago. It's been a pretty good while, but I think his team hit 30-some home runs, and I mean, they were loaded. The wind was blowing out all week to left field. So right after that, we knew if we were going to have any more, we talked to all those coaches involved in the tournament. And that was one of the things they brought up. I think there was 50-some home runs hit in that tournament in a 5-day period. But everything was perfect. The wind blew out, and like I said, Lewisburg won the tournament hands down, and they were loaded. A lot of Division I prospects, and they hit 30-some home runs. So we give Billy Godwin credit for that. It's kind of come full circle. We also got a commitment that we had to turn down, but they were willing to come down next spring and schedule a weekend Division I baseball conference series, a three-game series on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And but we had to turn it down because of the unknown with the construction also. Hopefully we get this project done, and we're going to have opportunities to bring in a lot of Division I, Division II baseball teams from around the country. We used to do this quite a bit, and the teams from up north, especially in February and March, are just looking for places to play. And so we think now with the facilities, the new turf, weather is not a problem as far as games getting rained out. So it should just really increase the use and the quality of use that we get out of the facility. Melissa's played a big part, and we've already hired two of our coaches for next year. We still have one opening that we're working on, but it's not nearly the rush. I tried to play peacemaker in allowing her to do this, but our manager for next year is going to be Corey Dunbar. He's a former University of North Carolina catcher. So when we got Corey hired, I told Melissa, explained to her a situation we have with the prejudice of our city manager. So we went out and hired Josh Pike, who is currently a graduate assistant pitching coach at NC State. So kind of even things out, and we'll see if those two guys can get along. But we had to do something to keep the city manager involved in this thing. And, well, we've got another opening, so if anybody's got any requirements, you can let us know. Kiwanis Club, they never blow their horn nearly as much as they should, but they've also been coaching. A lot of people don't realize, they just know it's been a long time. They've been sponsoring the American Legion program that I'm involved with since 1957, I believe that's right. And so they deserve a lot of credit for that. But yeah, my next thing was about the American Legion. The American Legion officials this year, when they came in for the regionals, they could look past the construction issues that we all had to deal with all year because they could see what was going on and the progress. And, one of the big things that we talked about in the dugout at one of our meetings over there was about the bank and what it took to build that wall. But the turf and everything, they were thrilled. Next year will be our 10th consecutive year of hosting a region tournament. There's 8 of those in the entire country each year. And next year will be 10-year consecutive for us. They're constantly trying to, if they had their preference, they would want to spread this thing out a little bit and share it. But they, so far we haven't been outbid, first of all. But the second thing is they know the facility, they know what's coming. And so I think we've got a good opportunity to extend this thing on out. We're in a perfect situation being in North Carolina and our location. We're the southernmost team in the Mid-Atlantic region, which stretches up to New Jersey. We're the northernmost team in the Southeast Division, which goes to Florida and over to Mississippi. So whenever they think it's kind of getting out of hand or we've had it too many years, they just switch regions on us. So we just came back from the Mid-Atlantic last year, and we're back in the Southeast now for the second time. So we'll keep trying to pull that off with them and get it done. But the biggest thing is just thank you for your considerations and the things you've done, and look forward to seeing you at the ballpark.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for all you guys do for us. We couldn't be doing that park without you. Thank you.
And there are those that will come. We
Yeah.
just built it.
Yes, we built it. All right, exciting.
Now, we have a, budget amendment for the motion we just approved, the contract we just approved.
Yes, sir.
Debbie?
In your packet, there are two budget amendments that relate to this matter. Their label is 10A double I. The first one is ordinance to amend the general fund. And in it, we've noted that we've got the $1 million grant from the state for capital improvements at McCrary, and we've received a donation of $500,000 from Randolph County government. For the McCrary Ballpark, we'd like to allocate these funds towards the purchase of the grandstand. As Michael noted, the cost of the grandstand is $3.6 million. And so the city of Asheboro would like to appropriate fund balance in the amount of $2.1 million to make up that $3.6 million so that we can execute that contract. The first amendment in your packet is an ordinance to amend the general fund, appropriating this fund balance to go to the McCrary Ballpark Construction Improvement Fund. I recommend adoption by reference.
Questions? May I have a motion to approve by reference?
Mayor, I move we approve the ordinance to amend the general fund by reference.
I have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. The next ordinance for consideration is the ordinance to amend the McCrary Ballpark Improvement Funds. This ordinance actually sets up the receipt of the donations that I just mentioned, the $1 million from the state grant, the $500,000 from the county, and the $2.1 million of fund balance from the general fund, and sets up the line item for the construction of the grandstand so that once this is approved, then we can execute the contract for the grandstands. I recommend adoption by reference.
Questions? May I have a motion?
Mayor, I move we approve the ordinance to amend the ballpark improvement fund by reference.
I have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Now, Mayor, for if you're watching on YouTube or listening on the internet, this is not the council knows this, and of course, the engineering and the staff knows this. People have been out to the ballpark, but this is, explain the engineering, Michael, but this is a concrete poured in place. This is not a galvanized steel county fair type grandstand. This is.
That's correct. So the lower portion will be concrete, poured in place, formed and poured. And then up from there will be just structural steel.
So we're out there. McCrary Park was opened in 1949. Here we are in 2022, and the way we're doing it, we'll get another 80 years out of it. That'll do.
All right, next item on your presentation, Michael, is consideration of the purchase and installation of the inclusive playground, play surface, and all appurtenances of McCrary Ballpark for play and park structure through Keystone Purchasing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the generous gift from Asheboro Kiwanis Club, staff would like to investigate the purchase of inclusive playground equipment. As Mr. Auburn discussed earlier, is currently on sale through the Keystone Purchasing Network. And this would be for the McCrary Ballpark area. It's directly, it's between the parking lot and the structure that we just discussed. This will be just for the purchase of the equipment, and we would be using the Keystone Purchasing through play and park structures, which are a member of the Keystone Purchasing, and it would not exceed. They're on sale through the end of September, and it will be installed by staff, and it would not exceed $50,000.
Okay. Questions? Motion? Anybody?
Move to approve.
Is that Mr. Burks?
Yeah.
All right,
Sorry.
do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Sawyers. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And Debbie, you have a corresponding budget amendment.
Yes. It's ordinance to amend the McCurry Ballpark Improvement Fund. And this ordinance just sets up the revenue from the donation from the Kiwanis Club and the construction for the playground. I recommend adoption by reference.
Okay, questions? May I have a motion?
Move to adopt by reference.
I have a motion by Mr. Burks. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Airport, Regional Airport Improvement Project, Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff met this morning with the airport, or at the airport, with Walker and Whiteside and W.K. Dixon for a final walkthrough, final inspection, and for the punch list. The installation of the runway taxiway lights is complete. Due to the weather and the encountering of rocks, it ran about two weeks over the anticipated completion date. With the final walkthrough, it was just basically some cleanup items, a couple small items, and they anticipate either completion of the punch list by tomorrow or Monday of next week. Due to it not being within local proximity of the airport, the FAA has pushed back the flight check for the PAPI Precision Approach Path Indicator lights back to August 27th, about approximately 2 weeks. Everything is currently functional out there. However, the lights, the PAPI lights will not be turned on until that approval has come from the FAA flight.
And when will that flight be, Michael? September 27th?
I'm sorry, September, September 27th, yes, sir. Other than that, everything is functional. We've got a few photos here of the runway. It's significantly brighter with the LEDs. Even during the day and foggy weather is significantly brighter as well. So this will greatly improve the visibility of the runway during night and low visibility weather. Just like to say that this was done through a grant from the Division of Aviation, so just to give them some credit for it. That's pretty much it, if you have any questions.
Questions?
Michael may want to add to this, Mayor, but we continue to see lots of aviation activity out there. You've seen some photos recently of some pretty significant sized aircraft.
Yes, sir.
We have demand for hangar space. We're in the process of building one now. I'm sure we'll just roll over and build another one and roll over and build another one.
There's current inquiries, that's for sure.
And there's a lot of economic activity out there. We're getting ready to hear some in a few minutes, and there's a lot more. I know Kevin and I were on the phone today with the project, and Mayor's traveling tomorrow for a significant project he'll talk about in a few minutes. So there's a lot of aviation activity, and there'll be more as the global workforce and the global marketplace shrinks all the time, doesn't it, Mr. Powell?
Okay, item 11A, four-way stop at intersection of Sherwood and Lambert.
Yes, sir. You have in your packets, and as shown on the screen, a drawing showing a four-way stop at the intersection of Sherwood Avenue and Lambert Drive. If council is in agreement with the concept, staff requests the city attorney to prepare an ordinance for the consent agenda of the next meeting in October.
This is a request, Mayor. Mr. Leonard's responding to a request of the neighbors down there. There's a
New development on the end of Lambert.
yeah, and
of
there's,
Sherwood.
and if you look on an area map there's a lot of houses in that little quadrant of the city. You don't think of it as that big, but there's a lot of traffic through
And
there.
that is an old street.
And, lots of youngsters, school bus traffic, so we think this is an appropriate traffic control measure.
What do you need from us? Motion?
If you're okay with the concept, the city attorney will prepare the ordinance for the consent agenda next time. We just you.
Make a motion, somebody make a motion to, proceed.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we proceed with the four-way stop intersection at Sherwood Avenue and Lambert Drive and add the new one in Dixieland Acres. Once I quit running it and got used to it, it's very calming.
It does.
Driving through it that first time, it was very disturbing.
It does slow things down, and I hope the neighbors are appreciative of that. It does make Dixieland Acres quite a bit safer and calmer. All right, so I have a motion by Mr. Moffitt.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Bell. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 11B is 4-hour parking limit on Sunset between the railroad right-of-way and Church Street.
Yes, sir. This is approximately 377 feet in length, or from the center line of Sunset Avenue to the railroad. You have in your packets, and as shown on the screen, a drawing showing the proposed location of the 4-hour parking along Sunset Avenue.
What is it currently? Two.
Mm-hmm. This is at the request of the Downtown Asheboro, Inc., and merchants in the area have agreed to the request. If council agrees with the concept, staff requests the city attorney to prepare an ordinance for the consent agenda of the next October 6th meeting.
Questions? Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I'll move that we approve development of an ordinance to institute a 4-hour parking limit on Sunset Avenue between the railroad right-of-way and Church Street.
Thank you, Ms. Heath. Do I have a second?
Second. Mr. Swears.
Second, Mr. Swears. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, Mr. Leonard, resolution to begin implementation process for an airport authority recommendation to amend the FBO lease agreement with Cardinal Air.
Yes, sir. At their last regular meeting, July 19th, 2022, Asheboro Airport Authority voted to recommend to City Council the revision of the FBO lease agreement to include additional responsibilities for the FBO, Cardinal Air. The city attorney has prepared a resolution, which is in your packets, to begin the implementation process and amend the FBO lease with Cardinal Air, and staff recommends adoption by reference.
Questions?
I'll just say this just authorizes, it takes 30 days published notice, so it will not, because of the way the calendar falls, we will not be able to get that done before October. So the resolution sets for when you actually will take final action on the proposed amendment for the November council meeting.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve this proceeding by reference. I'm sorry.
Mayor, I move we approve the resolution authorizing the publication by reference.
I have a motion by Mr. Bell. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion?
I'd like to add that the return of the popular and beloved Karen McGraw gives me great confidence in voting for this, and look forward to this streamlined operation. I think this is a great opportunity for all involved.
Absolutely. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Reeves, item 13, you have a budget ordinance amendment?
Yes.
For the general fund.
Yes, I actually have two budget amendments, ordinances to amend the general fund. The first one relates to vehicles and equipment. As you know, in today's environment, it is very difficult to get things in a timely fashion. We passed a budget for 21-22 with the expectation that we would finance the purchase of a lot of equipment. That loan closed in June, and as of June, we were expecting delivery of a lot of this equipment. Well, we have about $520,000 worth of equipment that was financed in June that has still yet to be delivered. Other pieces of equipment and vehicles have been canceled. The way accounting stuff works is that the revenue is supposed to match the expenditure in the fiscal year that you're operating. Well, in this situation, the revenue is going to be recognized in 2021-22. At the time we passed the budget for 22-23, we were expecting that equipment to come, so we did not put that money in this new budget. So I have to ask you guys to reappropriate funding for this equipment that is physically going to be received and actually expensed in 22-23. What's going to happen is the excess money from the loan will go to fund balance in 21-22, and you are appropriating back out of fund balance in 22-23. So this action is not appropriating anything new than what you have already done. It's just an crazy accounting record keeping that we have to do because we can't get equipment in a timely fashion. So hopefully that helps you understand what you're approving in this situation. It is a little unique and different from when I ask you to do things in the past, because normally I'm asking you to appropriate fund balance and there's not something matching it to wipe it out to a zero. I wanted to make sure that you had a little bit of an explanation of why we were doing this. So with that explanation, I recommend adoption by reference unless you have more questions, and I will do my best to answer them.
Any questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve this financial transaction by reference.
Mayor, I move we approve this ordinance to amend the general fund by reference.
Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Moffett. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. You have another one?
Yes, I do. The next ordinance in your packet is an ordinance to amend the general fund as well. The Asheboro Police Department once again applied for a grant from Walmart for some funds for community outreach, community resources and stuff. So this ordinance recognizes the receipt of those funds, we have received them, and amends the police department budget to set up the expense so they can use these funds in order for the community resource program that they have. And they got this same grant last year and have been very diligent about making, hitting it as soon as it becomes available, saying, hey, we want this. So I applaud the police department for doing everything they can to get resources to supplement their activities. But I recommend adoption by reference.
Questions? May I have a motion?
I move we adopt this ordinance by reference.
I have a motion by Ms. Heath. Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Bell. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I understand, along those lines, I understand that Dodge has ceased making police cars.
Yes, it's a very interesting environment to try to buy cars.
So, everybody drives a Dodge police car.
Well, we ordered SUVs this last year.
But we were able to secure some Dodge police cars.
The last of the last.
That it may be, Mayor. Ford's quit, Chevrolet.
But we don't know exactly what we're going to do for the next year. Chief Lineberry is working with dealers on that.
Probably riding around in VinFast.
Think you be riding?
All right, And guys, I apologize for y'all being last on the agenda, but I will open a public hearing for item 14, a potential building reuse grant application as part of an economic development project with PIMCO Manufacturing.
I'll let you review this meeting started in 1860.
Kevin said this is why he got out of city manager.
Well, I don't have these late meetings very often. But thank you for allowing us to be here. I do want to acknowledge Rick's presence, and he'll make some comments here in just a moment. But I'm going to set the stage for this program. And since I think PEMCO was probably the last building reuse grant we applied for here in the city, so it's been a few years, and I know we've got 2 council members that were not on council the last time we did this. So if the rest of you who are very familiar with this will bear with me, I want to provide a little bit of extra background for them. So obviously, PEMCO Manufacturing is not a new company here, and it's not one that's unknown in the community. But I do want to just give a brief overview of the company. They manufacture CNC machined equipment and CNC machined components for lots of industrial customers. The company was founded in 1960. Now they're located over at 631 Veterans Loop Road, down there behind the county office building and the jail in Asheboro. They serve a broad and diverse group of industries: aerospace, automotive, lawn and garden, heavy truck, firearm, rail, etc. They're a supplier to companies that are brand names we all know, like Honda and Ruger and Remington and Goodyear, and even as tier 2 suppliers to companies like Boeing and Airbus. So very, very well-known companies that they supply. They continue to grow. And as a result of that, a new business, they need to add some new equipment to their facility. And in order to facilitate the additional equipment, they have some upfits and upgrades that they need to do on their facility. So this is not a physical expansion project, but it is an upfit project that will facilitate new equipment being added. Some of the things that they need to do, for example, currently capacity on their electrical service, their HVAC system, their compressed air system. So all of that needs to be upgraded and replaced in order to accommodate the new equipment. The expansion will create, or the upfits will ultimately allow the creation of 18 new jobs with an average wage of $42,000 annually. It's about $1,500 above our current average annual wage for the county. These 18 new positions will be added to 110 current positions, which will be retained at the company. And I know when I started here almost 10 years ago, you might have had half of that number. And so this company is, or less, probably in the 40 range. And so the company has continued to grow, and it's been exciting to see that growth. They're eligible for a building reuse grant from the North Carolina Department of Commerce in the amount of $100,000 to assist with the upfit expenses, which total $223,900 or $990 in those real property improvements. The grant applicant must be a unit of local government, and so I'm here this evening to ask if the City of Asheboro serve as the applicant. There is no match requirement for this project. Application deadline was August the 25th. We've submitted all of the paperwork. It's inactive pending your approval here this evening and submission of the authorizing resolution, as well as the signature page that has also not been submitted. The grant submission deadline, again, is passed. October the 20th is when the award announcements are scheduled. We think we've got a great competitive application here. I would also note that we talk about addition of new machinery and equipment. The anticipated investment in that is about $1.5 million. So it's a sizable investment that will follow this $223,000 in upfits. We do believe this is a great project with good economic development for the county, for the City of Asheboro. Increases the value of the building, creates 18 new quality jobs, facilitates additional investment of up to $1.5 million in equipment. We love seeing our existing industry grow. This is a great program. I doubt there's a county in the state of North Carolina that's taken better advantage of this program. People call us asking how to work this program out. So we've had great success. Lots of money from the state coming to Randolph County, to the City of Asheboro to help these projects. Again, just a note, Unit of local government has to be the applicant. It does require a dollar-for-dollar match by the company, so 100,000 as opposed to 223,000 in investment. The company has 18 months to complete the renovation and the hiring, and then they must retain those jobs for an additional 6 months. So it is a 2-year program, could be less than that if the hiring is completed prior to that 18-month period. If they meet that, everything's good. It's structured as a forgivable loan. If they do not meet that criteria, if they don't hit those job numbers, we can ask for an extension. If even at that point they're not hitting the job numbers, then they have to pay back the value, which is about $5,500 per job in this case, with $100,000 for 18 jobs. In the very unlikely event that this were to go totally south, money were paid out up front, they didn't meet those requirements, the company went under, they weren't able to repay, ultimately the city is responsible for this. And so the company is certainly willing to make an agreement with the city to make sure that the citizens of Asheboro and your tax dollars are held harmless in this situation, and that could be deferral of payment until the program's done or some other financial instrument that protects the interest of the city financially. So that's the project overview, and I'm sure Rick will make a few comments, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Mayor, council members, appreciate your considering this request. Just wanted to say, and I'll keep it under about 40 minutes. About 11 years ago, I came before, I think, this group of the council looking to build our new facility over on Veterans Loop Road. About 4 years ago, we came back again with an expansion, and y'all supported us on both of those. And I just wanted to say on both those, and I was listening to what Kevin said at the end, and I'm thinking, what am I signing up for? But both of those, we committed to hiring jobs. We fulfilled those commitments. And I'm real strong on doing that. In full disclosure, I promised my wife I'd be home about 8:30 today. So I've committed to you and held that, but I may need a get out of jail free card when I get home tonight. But I do appreciate you doing this. We've enjoyed being here in Asheboro and look to continue to grow.
You're certainly a bright spot in our manufacturing sector.
And our on-time delivery with automotive is 99%, so we didn't cause the delays in the equipment, so.
And we all know Mr. Powell, but is a, outstanding employer, highly competitive, way beyond Randolph wage, offers full benefit program, and highly skilled employees, and hire lots of Randolph Community College skilled folks, whether they be CAD designers or machinists or whatever, and making great jobs for people that are friends and neighbors and live right here with us. We appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate all y'all have done.
We hadn't voted yet.
All right.
Mayor, I move we approve the resolution authorizing the grant application.
Before you vote, if you wouldn't mind, just for the record and the tape in particular, ask to see if there's anybody else who would like to speak, since it is advertised.
Is anyone else in the room that would like to address the council on this request? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bell. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swiggers. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
All right, Mayor, before you open item 15, you may recall back in June, we normally at the same time we have our public hearing for a budget adoption, we have a public hearing for our nonprofit entities appropriations here in Asheboro, our local economic activities. The General Assembly changed the general statutes, and now board members, that's you folks, can't vote, can't approve the appropriation of a board, Your Honor. So, that's the shorthand version? Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman? So, that being said, Mayor, we need to excuse Kelly because she's on the board of the chamber and the DIA board.
Correct.
Okay, and that's part of it to be funded. Likewise, Mayor, we need to excuse from chairing this public hearing because you're on the economic development, Randolph EDC. So,
I'm a non-voting member of the DAI board.
there you go. So, I think we need council, do we need council action? to
Yes,
excuse
we do
them?
need
Okay.
council action.
And we need Mr. Moffett to chair this part of this meeting. Can he, you don't have to leave your seat, but you just can't participate in the
Ask for a
debate, and you
motion
can't
to
participate in the action.
At this
correct.
time, I'd ask for a motion to recuse Mayor Smith and Councilwoman Kelly Heath, please.
I would make a motion that we excuse Councilwoman Heath from the voting end of the discussion and Mayor Smith chairing this particular item on the agenda.
Have a motion, can we have a second?
Second.
Second for Councilman Burks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is passed. This time we'll open the public hearing on the proposed appropriations to nonprofit entities from the Asheboro Randolph Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Asheboro Incorporated, and Randolph County Economic Development Corporation for economic development activities unrelated to real property or business location incentives.
And Ms. Reeves will provide the staff report.
Is the next slide there that has all the information?
He didn't give me the clicker.
There's supposed to be another slide that has all the information of what these guys all do. That is all in the public hearing notice.
There is a paper in your packet. I assume this is.
Yes, I have that, but there is a whole section of what it is that they do that we normally have on the slides, and I apologize. I was
We'll add
expecting
that.
they'd be on there.
Traditionally, and I'll throw this in while we're at the public, we count on Randolph Economic Development Corporation. They provide industrial expansion, both new and existing. They do international trade, as Mr. Powell just mentioned. He supplies to international companies. They do grant application through the NC Department of Commerce, as we just had a public hearing. And they also act as the city's agent when they negotiate that for the city to the industrial customer, because the city can't do too much privately. Okay, the Chamber of Commerce provides local economic retail sector development, local housing information. They also serve as do local leadership training, and as a generally support the retail development and the local economy on the side of the house that Randolph County Economic Development Corporation doesn't do. Downtown Asheboro is the newest member of the local economic development team. They operate the North Carolina Main Street program, which we're proud to be a member of. Main Street program provides economic activities in specific downtown areas. A lot of people think Main Street is a cheerleading section for Downtown or do event planning. That is not the purpose of Main Street. Main Street's an economic development program sponsored by the U.S. Department of Commerce through states. North Carolina's a very active one, and down to the local level. So I think you may add something, Kevin, in the synopsis, but I think that's what we're here tonight for.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, just to make sure, since we don't have the slide, I'll just read the portion that we published in the paper as far as the notice for what is being asked.
Please.
$125,000, Mayor Pro Tem, I apologize. $125,000 to the Asheboro Randolph Chamber of Commerce for the following services. 1, small business assistance, resources, and advocacy. 2, business development, including a joint program with Venture Asheboro. 3, community events and promotion. 4, local youth and adult leadership training. And 5, downtown Center City development and support, including office support for Downtown Asheboro, Inc. Then moving on, $120,000 to Downtown Asheboro, Inc. in support of the nonprofit corporation's leadership of revitalization efforts in Asheboro's historic core. These revitalization efforts focus on cross-sector promotion, design, and economic development in order to foster an eclectic retail, dining, and arts hub in downtown Asheboro. And finally, $55,000 to the Randolph County Economic Development Corporation for the following services. 1, new industrial/manufacturing company recruitment and site selection services. 2, existing industry/manufacturing technical assistance. 3, training assistance. 4, installment financing assistance. 5, state economic development incentives information and assistance. And 6, international trade services and information. That was advertised for the hearing, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and be happy to answer any questions and defer to Ms. Reeves for additional information.
Who needs a slide when you have John Ogburn and Jeff Sugg?
We'll play the audio. Is there any further presentation or testimony for the public hearing? Anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move we approve the ordinance to amend the Economic Development and Tourism Fund by reference.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Burks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is passed.
All right, Mayor.
Now, do we need a motion to let him back on the job?
The motion itself took care of it, so he's back in control.
Kevin, do you want to?
Okay, Mayor.
Okay, items not on the agenda.
Look at your top, Mayor. You had a couple of items you wanted
Yeah,
specifically to discuss tonight.
As we've heard tonight, from more than one person, we're in danger of losing our parks. We have the same homeless, population that many other places have, and difficulties with the homeless. We have drugs and alcohol abuse that are, really starting to affect our services and our amenities. And we have neighbors here tonight that are very much concerned about their neighborhood park, and it's our oldest and most historic park. And I sympathize with their concern. They have suggested, and I totally agree, that our 11 o'clock curfew in our city parks, and I remember when that was done, it was back in the mid-70s when the self-styled hippie population was hanging out at Fraser Park all night. And when the city instituted the 11 o'clock curfew for parks. But in light of our current situation in Asheboro and many other small towns, many other large towns too, I would like for the council to consider and have a discussion going forward, and possibly as quickly as possible, amend our curfew or hours of operation in our city parks, with a couple of notable exceptions like Bicentennial Park and McCrary Park and the Sportsplex. But our neighborhood parks such as Brewer and Fraser and Glenwood Park, Hammer Park down on Glenwood, and our little neighborhood parks, that we go to a dawn to dusk operation, meaning a curfew dusk to dawn, that we not tolerate a lot of this after-hour stuff. We've had shootings at Fraser Park, as Ms. McGrath let us know tonight. The police are over there constantly. They've had numerous 911 reports and responses over there, and that is not the only park in town that has this issue. It just seems to be our worst one at the moment, and that's partly because it is walking distance to more of Asheboro, more of downtown Asheboro than many of our other parks. So I'd like to Just,
If you'd like, Mayor, the staff will report back in October with we'll just.
a
make-
possible motion for us to make.
Yeah, and we'll lay out
Don't want to put this off any longer
the
than we have to.
parks and the lake schedule and everything, so we also have some folks on the council that's not really looked at that before, so
And-
we'll lay all that out for you.
As we know, and it's unfair for me to sit here and say that this is all, one segment of our population causing these problems, but, as we all know, homeless or not, they're citizens of our community, and they have the right to use the park, within reason, and there's no reason that we need people in those bathrooms after 8 or 9 o'clock. They are propping the doors open and using the restrooms for sleeping and bathing and everything else, and just overloading and completely disrespecting the parks. So I think maybe the first.
It's particularly acute at Fraser right
Yeah,
now.
and so the first, easiest, and most immediate step in the right direction would be changing these hours, instituting a curfew from dusk to dawn. And so staff would work toward getting that for us on the next.
We'll have a report in October.
All right?
Mayor, can I just make one comment related to that?
Yes.
And I don't know if there's any ordinances that we also need to review that may allow more teeth behind eliminating some of this activity. So I'll just make that suggestion.
Possibly are.
We'll dig
Okay.
into that too.
Okay.
All right, now, if you ride by City Hall out here in the next, starting today, to the end of the month, you will notice that, the building is, lit up gold. And that is, to highlight, Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, which is the month of September. And we're, as all of us in this room know, cancer touches just about everybody, every family we know. And it's unfortunate, and if we've not experienced it, I'm sure that most of us cannot imagine the terrible tragedy of losing a child to cancer. And we had one here in Asheboro just recently. A little 3-year-old child died of cancer. And so, month of September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and the city is doing a little small part just by lighting up the front of City Hall. And if you've got other places that you think might be suitable, that maybe we can expand that, but it's little enough to do to highlight childhood cancer awareness. So, and I want to thank Jimmy Cagle and his facility maintenance people for doing that for us, getting that. And you know, for Autism Awareness Week, lighted up blue at a certain time of the year. And in the morning, I'm going to Raleigh for an announcement on the CAM site, the Chatham Advanced Manufacturing site. So,
For those of you who are not aware, there's a economic development announcement tomorrow, a very large one. We just talked with Mr. Powell about a global marketplaces, so a global marketplace announcement. The city of Asheboro is participating in it, and we plan to provide the water to the site through interlocal agreement. You may remember a couple or 3 months ago, we approved a work agreement, a contract with Piedmont Tribe Regional Council to help negotiate that. So I think you can get home tonight and see it on television. I think RAL's published it, but the mayor will be at the governor's mansion, and if you can't guess what it is, by 10 a.m. tomorrow, right, Kevin, it'll be announced. Yeah, if you go to WRAL.com, I think you can get all the
it's no
answers.
secret, it's out there. But Governor is making the announcement in the morning.
Do you have any anticipated numbers on the volume of that water?
Yeah, about 3 MGD.
Or about double where we're at.
Phase one.
Yeah, and it may make us 3.5 in revenue a year just by turning the pump speed up. There'll be no capital outlay for us.
And we still got that much, we got 6 left then, or 5. It'll be 6, for it to be 6.5 of.
And we will talk about that as we begin the project, but we can probably connect to Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority and resell the county's allotment, and we can probably run 18 one of these days.
Regional Water Authority is in the midst of planning their next expansion, and they're asking, right now, they're asking the county for a commitment of the next 10 million gallons, how much of that they want. And we've had our conversation with the chairman and
The county manager, right?
so it's possible that we'll take some of that water and put in this pipe. It's possible that Ramseur may ramp up their plant to full-time and put some water in this pipe.
Better take some putty with you.
Well, that's the thing, they've got a lot of decisions to make, and going forward, Siler City's got some decisions to make, but the state wants us to run this water line down there and serve them with phase one, and it's a good thing for us, it's a good thing for Ramseur, a good thing for Franklinville, everybody east of here.
And if you just, since, we're in this business, so we do this all the time. When you ride east from here, it's a pretty easy ride. When you ride west from here, it is pretty steep.
And
So
lots of rock.
geographically, it's easier to work east for the long time, whether it be housing or economic development for Randolph County.
They still got solid sewer.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where this all came together. Prior to the state figuring out the sewer, there wasn't any stomach in Raleigh to do this project. So they've got their sewer figured out, I think, or working on that, and they're ready to make this announcement. Okay, on the 9th, Founders Week at Community College, 60 years anniversary. That's tomorrow.
Councilmember Heath may want to add something. I think it's tomorrow at noon.
Yeah, tomorrow at noon in Azalea Park. There will be some cupcakes and other items provided by the
Oh,
foundation.
man, will you save me a cup?
I'll try my best.
All right, Saturday night is no tie affair.
But before we leave that, Mayor, it's important for the public to realize that the biggest driver of economic development and probably the rising of Randolph County's economic development is Randolph Community College. The skill set that they put in this county and the ability for young people to go there and get 2 years of cheap undergraduate education, or for lots and lots and lots of traditional folks that worked in traditional manufacturing, as Ms. Akers just mentioned, her husband her whole life, to get retrained to an additional skill set. It's amazing. When they started it as Randolph Industrial.
Technical.
Yeah, Randolph Technical Institute. Nobody ever dreamed what it would be. But it shows you that, just like the water system we just mentioned, what we do, sometimes now we're caught up in the heyday of what we do and the give and take. We just had this whole discussion about SDR 35 and ductile iron, and does that apply here? But some of these, you just never know where some of these decisions wind up. It's pretty amazing how our generations ago have set us to where we're able to take advantage of it right here in September of 2022.
Community college is right in the middle of this Toyota project.
They were on our campus today.
And they were on your campus today.
They were on our campus
I was
today.
getting ready to say that.
And I'd be remiss, Mayor, I want to say this. I told Councilmember Heath when she got here, if you look at some of those documents from 55, 60 years ago, and there's John Ogbur's name on there. That's not me. Okay, that's my dad, so I'll honor him as he's closing in. He also started the YMCA and helped found the zoo, and one of the reasons I serve is to honor him.
Okay, Saturday the 10th, no tie fair, the Chamber of Commerce thing at the zoo at Solar Point. 12th, PNC branch is having their grand opening. You know, they've closed their downtown
It's
branch.
officially closed now.
And they've relocated out to the little strip center beside the pediatric dentistry at the mall. Grand opening from 10 to 12. John's going to be at ICMA conference next Friday to Wednesday.
And I had to promise Debbie, Jeff, and Holly I would not ride a snowmobile while I was in Columbus, Ohio.
All right. Ashtoberfest at Bicentennial Park from noon to 6 on the 17th. 22nd is elected officials picnic, and I will not be there. You will stand in for me. I will be in Winston-Salem. One of our police officers being honored for life-saving actions in Winston-Salem that night.
I won't be in Nashville, Tennessee, because I can't.
Well, then,
Well,
somebody else will stand in for us.
I'll be there.
okay, you it.
You're Big Jim? All right.
I'm next.
Saturday the 24th is United Way cereal sale, and that benefits the United Way, 9 to noon. It is drive-through only. This time, you will not get out of your car. You will drive up, tell them what you want, they'll throw it in your trunk. And $1 a bag. Post generally donates 10,000 bags, so it's if we can get everybody out there. And I would suggest, if you buy a bag or a couple of bags for yourself, throw in $10 and buy 10 more bags and let CUOC or Salvation Army have those bags.
I suggest you not wait till noon either.
Yeah, it could sell out quick.
It always does.
All right, Saturday the 1st and Sunday the 2nd is Fall Festival. Sunday the 2nd through Sunday the 9th is lighted up red for fallen firefighters.
So City Hall will be red that week, Mayor.
And you know, we have, here in the city, we lost 2 firefighters this past year.
That's right, Mayor.
One that was a firefighter for the city and another city employee that was a volunteer firefighter for 2 different volunteer groups. And just terrible losses for the city and for the families. So we're going to commemorate and honor the fallen firefighters that week. And I believe there will be a ceremony down by the
Yes, sir.
The flagpole or
We'll
something.
get, more as it gets a little closer, we'll get more details.
And then on October 20th to 22nd, the Chamber of Commerce retreat. I have 2 tickets here for the no tie fairs. Anybody need them?
Make it 4.
Make it 6.
6?
Not able to go.
Nobody going to?
Okay.
All right, well,
Yes, Holly's going.
how are you going?
I can't
All right, and I'm sorry it's been a long night, but we'll start with Kelly down here.
Just a couple other things to add to the calendar. So the Chamber's Christmas Events Committee is meeting, very excited about having the traditional parade this year, Christmas downtown. The city, of course, is a gigantic part of making that happen. So looking forward to that.
Mr. Swears,
I'm good.
Mr. Bell.
Just glad to be here.
Same.
I'll say I appreciate staff, appreciate all of what you guys do. I appreciate working with John
I
Ogburn.
will, I tell you, Debbie and I, we tell you every year about February, we just wrote out about Valentine's Day. That's always a nice gift. We send out the budget worksheets. The auditor came this week, so while we just talked about the long-term decisions and how 60 years ago is paying off today, the routine grind of what we do, we're grinding. So if you come by today, Mr. Hackett's down there doing accounting.
What are we gonna do when he quits?
I think
I'm
Debbie and
going
I
to
are
quit.
He's been our auditor for how long?
as long as I've been here.
And,
Okay.
I say this all the time, there's just, we all know how special Debbie is to this organization, how special she is as to people, and you got grit. That's all I got to say.
We're praying for you. Walker?
Had a unique occurrence. Well, it's been a long time since, I don't even remember when it happened, a long time ago, but, last week, I called animal control. There's a dog been around for about a day and a half. Thought it wandered off, came back. I mean, it's a decent looking Labradorish looking dog. You know, had a collar on, didn't approach or nothing, didn't know what to approach. Called animal control. They came over and, you know, calmly approached the dog, you know, but no identification on it. Well, what we gonna do? Well, ain't nothing we can do, pound full. So anyway, they had the dog on the head, drove off. I went on back about my business, and dog wandered on off. But maybe he made it home, maybe not. Anyway, it's just it's just a tale of woe. I don't have a solution.
It's
a symptom of the economy also.
Well, and
People are turning in dogs.
Yeah, and it's also imperative that we're always communicating with our fellows at the county, because we don't provide that service. We don't. So it's imperative that when you guys see the commissioners, you explain that there's a demand that's greater than the space provided. Even though it's it would be hard of anybody to work there. I mean,
Burnout's terrible.
We know what they do. It'd be a terribly unpleasant
And
job.
they just built a new building up there, what, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to. We're in the service business, and they're in a different regulatory business. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
just different.
Mr. Burks?
Happy birthday to my brother David. I don't know if he wants me to say how old he is, but he and Randolph Community College are the same age. That's all I have.
Jane?
Nothing to add, Tim.
Nothing to add.
Thank you so much, and,
Could I make a statement, please?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, I totally agree with the, dusk to dawn curfew, but right now, that does not help us at all, because I'm, 11 o'clock curfew now, and they don't honor that, they're not gonna honor this. So what's gonna happen for us?
We'll report back.
Again, I'm gonna ask, what's gonna happen to us?
Well, we're gonna expect, compliance.
Ask her to come in October.
Come in October, and you can hear what we plans.
October meeting, you got
October the
plans
6th.
for-
We'll adopt that. We'll adopt that, and we'll have some plans and enforcement plans.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about too, upgrading the park where we will be able to go down and use it also. We have no way to use the park at all, it's unsafe. And if they do honor this curfew, that's gonna send them out into our neighborhood even more, because they can't stay at the park.
Come to
I mean, it's becoming intolerable for our neighborhood.
Well, I understand, and you're not alone. Other neighborhoods have the same difficulties, and I'm not sure what the answers are, Pat.
Well, I've provided my suggestions, and I mean, I at least wanna know, if you're gonna spend some money on Fraser Park and bring it up to what it should be, and, you got enforcement, and I called them, and we didn't get anything done. In fact, we were warned about abusing 911. They said they had nothing suspicious, they see no probable cause to even ask these people their names to see if they can call and see if there's a warrant so they can be arrested, and it's over with.
We'll keep working on it, is all I can tell you. We'll try to figure, there are no simple answers, Pat.
Oh, I know, I'm not looking for a simple answer, because you can put a Band-Aid on a cut, but it's not gonna stop the bleeding. This curfew right here, I mean, it's not gonna change anything for us, because they don't obey the curfew now, and they won't obey this.
We probably don't enforce the curfew now. 11 o'clock, I mean, who even knows about it? They're certainly not the people that hang out in the park. So, we will try to figure out something to, make it better for you. is all I can tell you.
It's not for me. It's for
But
our whole neighborhood.
I understand
and
that.
also for Asheboro.
I understand that. When I say make it better for you, I'm talking in the collective better. I'm talking about a collective group, not just you. We will try to make it better for y'all,
Us.
the neighbors. And I don't know what the answers are, but we'll keep looking.
Well, I've made some suggestions. I would like.
And we're working on those.
Okay, I mean, October, we're gonna have some kind of plan at the October meeting.
We're gonna adopt that,
We're gonna have a curfew plan and.
curfew
enforcement
plan and an enforcement plan. As far as, I mean, we're just trying to get the facilities that are there up to, you know, painting the bathrooms, getting the roofs fixed, getting the Coke machine out of there, and all of that stuff, you
And-
know.
And
Are the bathrooms closed at night? I mean,
yes,
somebody.
sir.
They have automatic locks that
Okay,
lock
that's
at
what I thought
9
they did.
o'clock.
I've been over there for you, okay.
They are unwiring, cutting the wires,
Oh, God.
figuring out how to get around the locks, and if the locks are working, they're putting a stick in the door so they can use the bathroom all night. And
I'll add, excuse me, Mayor, I'm sorry, but I'll add, we check ever since the shooting.
Yeah.
Supposed to check the doors, special check the doors. We have found them where they've been propped. We unprop them, we move the people on after the curfew.
you started, once you and I had that conversation,
After the shooting, we've done long special checks. I just reminded them again, and we've continued that. But I do know we found the locks had malfunctioned one time. We passed that information on to.
and Jimmy's fixed them, and he's trying to figure out how he can fix them so they can't disable them.
That's correct.
But, you know, the police are going by every night after 9 to make sure the doors aren't propped.
And as soon as y'all leave, they come right back. I mean, they're there during the day. I've gone down there during the day and with my grandson. And they said, we can't use the bathrooms because we got people in there in the nude taking a sponge bath.
Just gavel it.
This is during the day.
All right. Okay, anything else?
No.
We're adjourned.